Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страны.
Найкращий пастух баранячий хотар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ті, хто воде всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів. Робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить. Хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар? Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ. Тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Наші
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 753 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And Putin allegedly won by a landslide, but Ukraine has really won by a landslide. It's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine, and also the war that's going on inside of Russia, and everything else that's involved in the war. There is a load going on again tonight as the city of Moscow has been attacked directly by Ukrainian drones, causing significant damage to the second largest airport in the Moscow metropolitan area and putting the city and that airport in particular on almost a complete lockdown. We're going to be covering that and a whole bunch of other stuff tonight, but before we do, I want to give a massive shout out to what the Sundays are always about, which is the Sunday Night Fundraiser. And tonight's Sunday Night Fundraiser is run for none other than the amazing Razom for Ukraine, an incredible nonprofit organization that has been doing amazing work helping to save the lives of many Ukrainian people throughout the war over the past 2 years, a little over 2 years, as a matter of fact now, because the war has been going on for 753 days. I highly encourage y'all to support this fundraiser while I try and make sure I can get the total. It's at $555 right now, and every single dollar that goes into the fundraiser helps to support Razom and helps them to continue working their efforts inside of Ukraine. But with that, it is now...
I can't remember exactly what the number was. We've raised somewhere in the neighborhood of, I think, 230 or was it 330 for Razom alone?
It's something around $233,000 that has been raised just for Razom, and over the course of the whole channel, we've raised $1.3 million for all of the nonprofits that we've supported on each Sunday. So huge credit to the Lee Spring Army. I mean, big bucks and certainly helping out in massive ways inside of Ukraine. But moving on from that, it's time for us to get on into the Moscow area, specifically the town of Domodedovo, because we got to see today that apparently Russian air defense was caught lacking and the Ukrainians pulled off the most successful attack within the Moscow area seen to this date. Unbelievably. We're going to be taking you all to the area of Moscow here on the satellite picture because the Domodedovo airport right here is the second largest one inside of the city of Moscow, and not only that, serves as a major hub for air freight traveling in from the rest of the world, and also serves as a minor military airfield in some capacity from what we understand right now. At the moment, we understand that the airport for a while has been completely shut down for about 10 hours now, and we also know that the entire area is apparently on some kind of a security lockdown at the moment. But I'm going to show you all the footage that we got from the Domodedovo airfield showing the attacks, and not only that, showing some of the aftermath of the attacks as well, as a amazing $250 comes in from Repo Man donating to Razom.
Hey,
but here is
Here
is one of our first clips of the Domodedovo airport attack right here.
Летит стопудово нахуй. Ой, блядь. Сейчас въебут нахуй.
Do you hear that?
It
sounds like
it's a haunting sound of a lawnmower coming in.
Matthew, I swear, Matthew, that sounds like it sounds like the lawn crews. It sounds like
нихуя пролетел.
Huh.
Видно было.
It's getting louder.
Oh man.
Он там где-то. Вон он, вон.
Oh.
Oh damn, they scalped the grass.
Нихуя. Ёба, они чё?
My
Они чё
God.
охуели уже третий, ёбана в рот, блядь.
And of course, everyone here at the airport is completely confused and doesn't really have an idea of what's going on. Fairly normal inside of Russia, but many people were able to catch this attack on film, and it apparently consisted of not just a single drone, it was multiple different drones striking Domodedovo airport. I'm going to be showing y'all another outside view of the attack in this clip. This one's a little bit farther away from the building, but kind of on the same side. And we can already see here fire coming out of the building as the fire is starting to engulf the interior of the airport terminal and send the entire thing up into a pyre of flames. We then got a video from the inside of the building showing the smoke starting to build up as the fire begins to spread. We can also hear the sound of someone apparently pushing a squeaky shopping cart through the airport terminal. With that, that's the end of that clip. But overall, all these clips are really giving us a clear picture that the Domodedovo airport was hit quite decisively today by the Ukrainian drone forces, and it appears that the airport has suffered a serious amount of damage, and it's also been shut down. Russian air defense was completely caught off guard in the initial part of the attack, and from what we understand, 3 to 4 drones have ended up impacting the Domodedovo airport in different areas of the entire facility, and have ended up causing it to be shut down up until the foreseeable future. We do not know when the Domodedovo airport will be opened up again. At the moment, it may be shut down temporarily or even indefinitely until repairs are effected. After that, we also saw that the drones kept coming after the first drones were caught on film impacting the building. We got to see that one drone apparently did get shot down by Russian air defense after they detected the Ukrainian drones in the area, because they had already hit the airport and blasted away parts of the roof and also caused major fires. Here in the parking lot of this gas station, with the airport terminal not that far away in the background, you can see that one of the drones will get shot down and will end up landing somehow miraculously away from any of the Russian citizens who are here at this gas station, and land in the only open area, the only open spot in the entire parking lot. Right now, at this moment, we understand that the drone is being shot down by Russian air defense in this clip, and it's about to start spiraling down into this parking lot. It's actually going to hit right here on the left side of the screen in just a second. We can already see, we can also see the massive explosion right there, but you can already see this car right here, the black SUV. It already has its car alarm going off because of the explosions that happened over at the airport just about 20 to 30 minutes prior, or a little bit sooner than that. But we can now see the drone come crashing down into the pavement here, right there, and then it goes sliding across the pavement, creating a massive fireball.
It had like fireworks built into it, little sparks flying everywhere.
Yeah, I was like, what the hell?
Man, they're losing it too over that.
Just like, yeah, it's a bad scenario, to put it lightly. But that's the end of that. Oh, someone apparently had tuberculosis at the end. Very common in most Russian clips. Listen. Right there. But beyond that...
Always hacking up a storm out here.
Man, they were coughing up a lung. Because you know one thing, Matt, the Ukrainian drones will blow the lung clear out of the body. But beyond that, it does appear that it was a very successful drone attack, and from what we know, the Domodedovo airport is pretty much completely shut down for probably the next few weeks, possibly maybe even a month or 2 months because of the damage that was caused. It also appears that fire brigades were not in the area and were unresponsive to the attack, and once again, it appears that things are going very poorly for everyone involved on the Russian side. Things went well for the Ukrainians, however, because Domodedovo airport is a cargo airport, is a passenger cargo airport. It's kind of like a mixed traffic airport like many of them are. And from what we understand, those attacks ended up targeting and hitting the cargo section of the airport, not the civilian passenger section of the airport, meaning that Moscow now has lost one of its most vital air links to the outside world for air cargo, and that means that the the supply rate for any forces inside of Moscow may be slightly reduced, considering now that there is no way to bring in Ilyushin 76 transports to unload any kind of cargo in Moscow, at least at one airport. Now most of those supplies will either have to go completely to Moscow's northern airport, the Sheremetyevo A.S. Pushkin International Airport, or they will have to be trucked in. Beyond that, however, this attack was quite serious, and it was a massive success from Ukrainian forces today, leading the Russians to have probably one of the most ironic-looking pictures that I have ever seen. This was posted today on our Twitter. You can find that in the link in the description below. But this is a fire that came from the, apparently this is an AI image. Dagnabbit, Matthew.
What?
It's a freaking
No
AI
way.
image. I just saw that down there because I was looking, I was like, wow, isn't that crazy that it says stability on the political poster there, and then there's a massive fire from Domodedovo in the background?
Man.
Sadly,
I should have known that was too good to be true because it was too perfect. When I saw it earlier, I'm like, this could not have gone any better. Like an image for this, like literally stability on the sign and an explosion behind it. AI is getting too good because not even I caught that. And I play with AI all the time and I didn't even notice it.
yeah, I hate that. I hate that because it was a very good picture, and I just saw that they finally added the note right there. And it looks like they literally just added it right before we went live, because earlier in the day, I was analyzing this greatly. I was like, wow, that is so crazy. I was like, that's nuts. You know, the perfection of this picture to capture such a thing. And now we just know it's an AI picture. And that apparently was just discovered around an hour or 30 minutes before the stream when we weren't able to catch it. But moving on from that and also removing that marker from the map because that would be misinformation to keep it on, we're now going to be moving on into our next little bit of news where we got to hear about the election results in the Rossiyski Federacji. Many of y'all know that we knew that Putin would win. No one could not vote for Putin because 1, he's an amazing presidential candidate. 2, he's the perfect leader of Russia. And 3, if we said otherwise, a Russian armed guard would come up to our voting booth and shoot us in the head and kill us. So we actually cannot say anything otherwise, but he did win in a landslide. Now, many people here on this channel have given their numbers. My number was 92%. I thought Putin would win by a margin of around 92%. Some people believed it would be in the 60s, the 70s, but some people I saw in the live chat actually put something like 87.25%. I think a few people actually put that number exactly. And to those people, you won. You actually got it dead on the nail. If you guessed 87.85%, you got it correct. That's the actual number that Putin ended up winning by in the election. No one saw this coming. It was a complete shock to the entire world that Putin would win pretty much the entirety of the vote inside of the Russian Federation. We have no idea how, we have no idea why, but Putin must be one of the greatest statesmen to ever live. Absolutely nobody in Russia disagrees with his reign of the country, except for a measly, roughly 2 million people. And those people are probably being swiftly dealt with at the moment because they should know better than to say that Putin is not a great leader. But beyond that, another thing that I found very shocking, Matthew, is that the voter turnout was incredibly low. Even for Putin, there were only 16.6 million votes for Putin out of a country with a population of about 120 million people.
Yeah, man, if they had any sense, they wouldn't come out and vote. And also, like, it's a bad day, like in any election, when you see other guys here next to Putin that you don't even know who they are. And I follow Russia decently close, and I have no clue who these other guys are. Like, nothing about them. Putin is literally the only guy up there that anybody's probably going to know what they're about.
Let's see. I'm trying to see if so this guy is the commie here. This one who won 3.86%. So I did get it right. The commie did win the most of the vote behind Putin at 3.86%. A real whopper there. It was a very close race. But beyond that, I don't think anyone was not expecting this, in all honesty. And it also appears that absolutely no one voted in the election either. Let me make sure to get this correct. The population of Russia, which I believe is around 143 million, as a matter of fact. So, if we do the math and we calculate 16 million, and I want to do this really quickly on here, plus 700,000, because I'm just going to do rough numbers, plus another 560,000, plus 730,000. So that's 17.9. Well, we'll round that up to 18 million. But 143 million divided by 18 million, that means that only 7.9% of the Russian population, according to these numbers, voted in the election. Everyone else just stayed home and did not vote. That is nuts. Only 8% of the population. Nuts. I believe here in the United States, it's around 50% of the United States voted in the last election, or something along those lines.
I can't remember for certain, to be honest with you.
It was pretty high. I believe it was either half of the country that was eligible to vote, or more than half, but that still gives you an idea of how little of a democracy there is in Russia at all, that there's almost no one who voted in the election. Literally no one.
That's true, and also, like, we saw that image earlier of the billboard with the explosion behind it, and we said that's AI generated. I'm with Barry Woodward in the live chat. I think these other three guys here, except for Putin, are AI generated because they look fake. Like, if you told me to look at an AI image and say which one that would be, I would say the other three guys up here on this lineup.
And also, Old Grid with Scott said they actually ranked by forehead size. Nuh-uh, because if they did that, this guy over here on the left would have won by a massive margin. This guy's got a forehead so big, you could put Russia and Africa on there at the same time and there'd still be space for America. This guy has the biggest
He's got a lot of
forehead.
runway.
Yeah, he's got a lot of runway there. This guy here apparently got the least because he's the one with a longer haircut and obviously not balding, so he's a bad candidate for the Russians. But still, what the hell's up with this guy? This guy looks like Lavrov and Putin had a child, and this is what it turned out to look like. This guy looks like a mix of a horse and whatever the hell Putin looks like. So, a little bit odd of an election, but once again, not unexpected. At the exact same time as Putin miraculously won the election again, we got to hear that from inside of Moscow and in the Kremlin, while the city was being locked down from drone attacks from the Ukrainians that were ending up blowing away the second largest airport in Moscow, Putin warned that if Western troops go into Ukraine, it's going to create a third world war kind of a situation where he pretty much just sends Russia at war with the entirety of NATO almost on the spot. That is something that I'm kind of doubting a little bit, because that'd be a little crazy for the Russians to do something that suicidal, but nevertheless, he did say it again, and, there's really nothing new there. But I thought I'd share with you all the statement, because, of course, the Russians are being the loudmouths that they always are. But moving on from that little bit of news, we have to talk a little bit about Putin. I know. Everyone doesn't want to talk about Putin, and it's a terrible thing to talk about the guy, because what's worse than Putin? Crapping in your pants. But beyond that, many people are talking about what will happen if Putin just continues on. Will there eventually be crap in the pants, or will it just be an infinite amount of Putin with no stopping whatsoever? They call that here in the West flagellance. In Russia, they call that true leadership. But beyond that, a lot of y'all have been talking about that very question. In all seriousness, beyond the cheap jokes, is with Putin winning 87% of the vote. Again, of course, by no shock, because the election is rigged inside of Russia. Will he ever be removed? Will this be an endless cycle of Putin being the president and the prime minister of Russia until he dies? Or will there ever be a leadership change while he's alive through some kind of a democratic means? And a lot of y'all have had many different opinions on that. And Matthew certainly has a very strong opinion on this, considering that his degree is actually in political science, and Russia is the only place that we're allowed to actually talk about politics here on this channel due to the no politics rule. But Matthew, what are you thinking most importantly about this? Because I know you have a lot to say on it.
All right, so after we learned that Putin won the Russian election by 87%, a huge margin, solidifying his rule until 2030, we asked you all in the audience, will Putin ever be removed? 49% said no, Putin will remain until death. 36% said yes, Putin will be removed by a coup, and 9% said Putin will be unelected one day. And in my opinion, Putin is going to remain there until his death. He is not leaving. He will never get unelected because the elections there in Russia are rigged, and I really doubt a coup attempt is going to take him out. So until he dies or until he's assassinated or something like that, he is not leaving. He really doesn't even have any options, really. He can't leave office, really, because he's not going to do that, first of all. And even if he was removed and he had to flee somewhere, I don't think anyone's going to take him in. So he's basically backed into a corner at this point. He's put himself in that corner, and now he's going to have to live with it. And it appears now he's going to make sure he wins most of the vote every single time. Every election that gets held in Russia, his vote counts keep going up on the percentages, and this time is no exception. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, in my opinion, I would have to agree. He's going to remain until death, or he's going to be removed in a coup. Both of the groups of folks who said that, I think y'all are largely on the nail. Or maybe he will be unelected one day, but I'm highly doubting that, because he's the one who kind of counts the votes. Whoever counts the votes wins in Russia, and that means that the ruling party will always win inside of Russia, unless if there's a coup or unless if they die, one or the other. So I would have to say that he's probably going to remain until death at this given time. Or here in the near future, thanks to the efforts of the Free Russian Army, he's going to be ousted in some kind of a coup, or because he becomes wildly unpopular in Russia, and some underlings find a moment of advantage to be able to seize power in Russia and to become the top dog like Putin has been since the early 2000s. That's what I believe at the moment. I don't think we're ever really going to see a change in that kind of a line of reasoning. I'm pretty sure y'all can take those two ideas and cash them into the bank, because they will be true until the very last moment that this guy is alive or he's in power. So with that, I hope that does address that at least fairly well, in my opinion. And moving on from that and out of the Moscow area, I have to bring y'all into southern Russia to talk about something else that it really blew me away today. I know that this is a fairly normal piece of news to hear over the past few days, but in reality, this news is nothing but abnormal. Another massive oil refinery, several massive oil refineries were hit overnight, and one of the largest ones in the town of Slovyansk na Kubani, which is just west of the city of Krasnodar, heading on its way towards the Kerch Strait in Crimea, was stricken last night by Ukrainian drones and completely knocked offline. To take y'all to the area of Slovyansk na Kubani, which is a very hard name to say, we can see the town right here. It looks like absolute hell. But just nearby, there is an oil refinery. And let me see if I can find the oil refinery, which is actually right here. Here it is. This is a fairly smaller one, but still it does produce a vital amount of oil for the Russian Federation, and once again helps them to keep their war effort and their economy running. Oil is truly the life's blood of any nation in the world right now. If you want to have any kind of industrial ability, oil is the most necessary thing to have in your possession and to be able to produce in large amounts or be able to import in large amounts. Russia really has no options to import oil in very large amounts, and also on top of that, their current domestic oil production has been slashed by 25% due to Ukrainian drone attacks that had occurred before today. It is still getting knocked out at even higher rates, and today at Slovyansk na Kubani, we got to see that this oil refinery was severely hit and knocked offline. Here is the first video that we have of 3 of the explosion at the oil refinery at Slovyansk na Kubani. We can see the massive roaring inferno out there in the distance starting to light up the night sky. And the explosions of drones intermittently allowing a little bit of extra daylight to be seen until the light fades. Much like the light of hope that's fading inside of the Russian government, that there will even be fuel left to run the Russian nation here in a couple of months. Moving on from that, we also got to hear about more explosions happening at the refinery in this clip. There it is, the dreaded sound of the Ukrainian lawnmower. And there we have it, right there, the flash, the explosion of the Slovyansk na Kubani oil refinery just went down in that explosion right there. Moving on from that and into our third clip of the explosion, we were then able to see that the fire was raging well afterwards, and once again proving that this refinery had absolutely no air defense, which is bizarre. And I'm actually going to go back here in a second and talk about this, because this ties into the A-50 that got shot down just north of Slovyansk na Kubani a little bit earlier on in the war, maybe about 2 weeks ago. And there's an interesting story to be made here. But there's the fire. Oh, it's cooked. every electrical system in that refinery is boiling right now.
Нет, еще не прошли.
The fire is just beginning.
Hot diggity dog. I love fires in Russia.
Good googly moogly, that thing is juicy. Oh,
There's
you
the
hear
honking
another
sound of a lawnmower.
Где ПВО?
Смотри, вот летит.
The Russians saying, what is it, Lonko? No, it's worse.
Они
It's
летят, они
Ukrainians.
с стороны,
That's weird.
с нашей стороны откуда летят.
Also, don't know why no one's brought this up before, because I don't even think we talked about this earlier, Matthew, but what is the giant smoke plume coming from over here in the city? Because that's not the refinery, that's something else.
Yeah, I actually saw this video earlier today. I didn't notice that while I was watching it. That's a good catch. I'm not even really sure what's over that direction because the oil refinery is in the complete different direction. So I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I wonder what the hell that is out there, but beyond that, there's something else that looks like it's on fire and burning, but the refinery's way over to the left side of the screen. Way over there where you see those 2 fires burning.
Ничего не работает, ничего никакого ПВО не срабатывает.
Да какое ПВО, братан?
Смотри.
And the drone's faded off into the distance. It's getting on its final approach to the oil refinery and getting ready to dive in for the attack.
Вот отстреливает его.
Well, you hear a pop for a second. It may have been a rifle firing. but not a lot.
Ma,
Ooh, there's the next explosion.
Oh.
Oh, and the fire rages even hotter now. It really does. Looks like it opened up another hole in the pipe, and more oil is starting to fuel that fire, and it got even larger because of that explosion. Huge shout out to Just Chillin', by the way, who just threw in $300 to Razom for Ukraine. Absolutely incredible. We were actually up to $2,000 already at this point in the stream. And I got to thank everyone for supporting Razom for Ukraine tonight. And I hope that everyone takes it over the top, over $3,000, and starts racing on even higher than that. But moving on from the Sloviansk na Kubani attack that occurred today, we are once again seeing that the Ukrainian grand strategy at the moment does not consist of battlefield advances or battlefield victories. It relies on drone attacks, knocking out the Russian armed forces' ability to even be able to fuel their army to keep them fighting inside of Ukraine. This is a massively beneficial thing for the Ukrainians to be working on, and it appears that Russian air defense is completely lacking in its ability to detect, intercept, and stop these drones. And this brings us on to something that needs to be talked about: the Russian air defense in this area. And we're starting to get a lot more knowledge about it now that Sloviansk na Kubani has been knocked out that we didn't have before. Allow me to explain. The A-50 that got shot down up at the village near the village of Novosherbinoskaya, right up here just south of Yesk, this aircraft was shot down supposedly by a Ukrainian S-200 missile. We believe here on this channel it was probably shot down by a Russian S-300 that conducted a friendly fire incident due to how all the footage unfolded and what we were able to extrapolate out of the film. Of course, that may be an incorrect analysis. We don't really know which one is correct, but at the moment, either way, people said that an S-200 was flying in, and the S-300s picked it up when it was heading towards the A-50 and fired at that missile to shoot it down. And I think this furthers my A-50 theory back in the day that they probably never saw the S-200s, if there were any, flying towards that A-50 command aircraft. Because if they were able to pick those up, wouldn't they have been able to pick up a drone that's flying all the way across the Sea of Azov, a literal flat surface? There's nowhere for a drone to hide. It's not like it can fly at tree level and the radar can't pick it up because of the clutter of the trees on the radar system. It's on an open sea for over 100 miles on its way to Sloviansk na Kubani. If the air defense was truly that good in the area, to be able to detect an incoming S-200 and to attempt to shoot it down, it probably would have been good enough to try and detect these drones that were flying over the Sea of Azov and shoot those down as well, but it did not. And the drones flew all the way to Sloviansk na Kubani without being engaged whatsoever from where they were launched to where they hit, and ended up destroying the oil refinery. I believe that this once again furthers the theory that we had originally that the A-50 command plane that was shot down near Novosherbinoskaya, if that's the correct way to pronounce it, and I think it is, was shot down by Russian air defense with an S-300 instead of Ukrainian S-200, because the fact that the Russians fired off any air defense whatsoever in the direction of the A-50, when they clearly cannot easily detect air targets that are coming in like these drones today, once again furthers the idea to me that the A-50 was literally above head, easy to see, and on top of that, easy to pick up on radar and shoot down. And I believe that once again furthers my idea that Russian air defense in this area is highly incompetent, incredibly lacking, and furthers the proof that the A-50 was probably shot down by Russian air defense and not by Ukrainian S-200. But that once again is just a theory, a war theory, and the only thing that we can get out today that is 100% true is that the oil refinery at Sloviansk na Kubani is no longer. Moving on out of that news, however, there was some massive news today because we saw something that we never believed we would see, Matthew. And this is something that's really shaken my faith in Ukraine as a whole. They attacked Moldova today, Matthew. I don't know if you saw this, but they dead on blew up a Moldovan Mi-8 that was kind of in the Transnistria area today. It was a tragedy, Matthew. I have to say, 100%.
It was terrible, man. I saw the thing myself earlier today. I was like, I cannot believe they would do something like this. Did they really hit it, man? Like, let's see this.
Let's look at the footage. I mean, y'all, we know that video and picture evidence is what we have to confirm something, and so many people are starting to pick up on that out there in the world. You know, like, you have to have proof, and there's proof coming out today that the Ukrainians attacked the itty-bitty Moldovans, the precious Moldovans. Look. Oh my God. They hit an Mi-8 and blew it up. Oh my God.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Can we get a little closer on this?
No, no. What the hell?
Zoomed in
That's
just a little bit.
blasphemy. Oh, look at that.
Oh,
Huh.
man, that thing looks a little bit rusty, if you ask me. It looks like it might be a little bit old, a little bit unused, if you ask
Yeah.
me.
You know what's a little weird? The one of the front cockpit windows is missing. That's a little odd, isn't it?
That's different. And also, where's this camera set up that's looking at this singular helicopter in a random area like this?
Yeah, I got some questions. I'm not gonna lie, I got a lot of questions, and we were just kidding with y'all by saying the Ukrainians did it, because we actually have the whole story, of course, and the Ukrainians did not do this. I'll explain.
Absolutely not.
So what happened today was that the Russians are trying to fuel a incident or create an incident in between the the Democratic Republic of Transnistria, which is a unofficial country that exists within Moldova on their eastern border, and the Moldovan government that actually legally controls the country. This helicopter here is actually a older Mi-8 that has been abandoned by both the Moldovans and the Transnistrians since 2003, and over years of Google satellites passing over this airfield in Transnistria, this helicopter was in the exact same spot since 2003, over 21 years ago. This was a false flag that the Russians tried to attempt today. And if you weren't observant of how derelict this helicopter was, and also the Moldovan government's official statement today, completely claiming the contrary and saying that the Russians actually did this to try and instigate rising tensions in the area and to also create an instance that they could take advantage of, you wouldn't know that. But we do have additional video evidence of the burned down Mi-8, and this is a very interesting one because we have additional video evidence. Notice that the video is filmed by a drone. This is actually a fairly big production that the Russians tried to pull off today to further the idea that the Moldovans or the Ukrainians are attacking Transnistrian citizens, although they're not really Transnistrian citizens, they're Moldovan citizens, and trying to create a reason to invade Moldova with the Russian forces that are in Transnistria along with the Transnistrians themselves. Because look, they filmed this with a drone. They are showing off the damage, trying to make it look like the poor little Transnistrians need some help from the wicked, evil Moldovans that are Western aligned. I mean, they were really trying to sell it.
I just gotta say, this was such a poor attempt at a false flag. Like, false flags don't always go perfect. I understand that, but this is the worst. This was literally figured out by amateur journalists in less than a couple of hours. And it took Moldova simply a matter of 30 minutes to figure it out what had happened. And all the Transnistrians tried to say, oh, the drone came in from Odessa region, it came flying in and it hit our helicopter. But it's like, we saw it literally on a map. That helicopter had been sitting on that pad since 2003 and had not moved since that date. And it was apparently just fueled up or something, because it was a pretty large explosion for a helicopter that had been sitting there for that long. So just a really lame attempt all the way around.
And there it is. That is the Mi-8 right there. And from what we can tell, according to Phytux News, this is the Google Earth satellite image from 2003. And it's been there for 21 years. So
just pathetic.
It's such a pathetic attempt at a false flag that it's laughable to see this, because as soon as it happened, the Russian government put out a statement saying, "Oh, the tensions are rising inside of Moldova. We will have to support our Transnistrian friends who only want to be liberated from the oppressive government." And literally everyone within 30 minutes was able to find out that this was a straight up lie that was being propagated by the Transnistrians and the Russian Federation to try and create an instance, what we call a false flag, for them to be able to go into Moldova and get involved there and have some kind of a base or a reason as to why. This is absolutely insane to see that the Russians are so desperate to create a situation inside of Moldova that they will sit there and come up with a false flag to be able to do so. Nuts. I mean, there's no other way to describe this rather than nuts. And a lot of people have been saying that this is probably something that the Russians tried to propagate today of all days, because Putin got reelected on the official level. We know he was going to win, and I got to say that so many times. We knew that Putin was going to win. There's no doubt about it. Everyone in Europe was already congratulating him before the election even happened on winning in a landslide, and funnily enough, he did. Who would have wondered why? But beyond that, I believe that this false flag was attempted today of all days because Putin just got reelected president, and they could try and spin it to the Russian public to make them support the situation in Moldova and Russian intervention there, that Putin was reelected, and the wicked people of the West got so angry that they ended up attacking our Transnistrian friends to try, piss off the Russians because they hate Putin or something, so we have to go and intervene in Moldova. I think that's probably the instance why they said that. And that kind of circles us all the way back into Ukraine itself, because a lot of people are wondering, now that Putin has been quote-unquote reelected, and he's going to be president, I believe, for the next 6 years, is he going to change his posture on Ukraine at all? Is he going to go harder on Ukraine? Is he going to go lighter on Ukraine? Or is he going to remain consistent in his approach at the moment to what's happening there? Everyone has had an opinion on this. And I've seen so many people talking about it today, especially since he will be the president of Russia unless anything changes here soon for the next 6 years. And Matthew, what do you think he's going to do? Do you think he's going to try and get harder on the Ukrainians? Or do you think he's going to try and lighten up or keep things as they are?
So we asked the audience, do you think his posture is going to change now that now that he's been reelected? And it looks like 53% said yes, Putin will go harder on Ukraine now that he has been reelected, and 40% said no, he will remain consistent. And in my opinion, I think he will remain consistent. I don't think he's going to start going any harder, because really he can't, because they're going as hard as they can right now, and they're making zero progress. Also, you got Putin here trying to get himself back into an office where he doesn't even belong. And to me, it's just a whole sham like we've seen before. He won by a massive margin. He beat out all these other unknown guys. And to me, it's just status quo. Like, there was basically nothing new that happened today, except we got confirmation that this election was a sham once again. So I'm with the 39%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, I would have to believe that he is going to remain consistent as well. A lot of people say he's going to go harder on Ukraine, but like Matthew was saying, that's going to be really hard. They are going as hard as they can right now because countries don't like to drag wars out. I know that's what a lot of people think, especially here in the United States, because the war in Afghanistan lasted nearly 20 years, and the war in Iraq lasted for about 10. But in reality, the actual wars in those countries only, how in the hell did we get a super chat tonight? What in the world? That is weird. We'll address that in a second. But beyond that, one thing that is very interesting is that the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan only lasted for months. Then the occupations of Iraq and Afghanistan, as we tried to create an interim government and a new government, was what really took a large amount of time. No one wants a war to last forever, and the Russians would have ended this war a lot earlier if they could have, meaning that they are already going as hard as they can, and they can't go any harder. Beyond that, I believe that he will remain consistent because he's not going to lighten up. He's pretty dead set on trying to take Ukraine, although that's probably not possible. And also, he has no ability to try and fight harder against the Ukrainians, so it's probably just going to remain at the level for the moment, at least in my opinion. But moving on from that, I do have to thank JD Mako23 for the $20 super chat. And JD Mako said, for some reason, it won't show donate on my iPad. Please put this towards the fundraiser. And now Rob has been able to throw in a 20 as well. Really quickly, I would like to address that for a moment. Tonight is the Sunday night fundraiser. In this channel, there shouldn't even be an ability for viewers right now to be able to throw in super chats. We are going to put y'all's donations, y'all's super chats actually, towards the fundraiser. But I do have to say, if you do not have the ability to support the fundraiser, please go down on the link in the description below to United24 and you can support United24 instead. The funds go directly to the Ukrainian government and helps them out. I hate to see that some people are running into that problem, but also I have to put out that while super chatting us looks like a fix to the issue, it necessarily isn't. YouTube takes 30% of every single super chat, so if you throw in a $10 super chat, we only get $7. And that means that we have to put a $10 donation into the fundraiser, although we only got $7 actually from y'all, and YouTube took $3. But we are going to put both of those in, and I believe we'll just round that around to $40 US. So really quickly, let me go over here and throw that in on this side of the screen. And so we want to put in 40. And also, by the way, I'm still running into the problem on my phone, so I'm actually having to do this on my computer at the moment. So,
and also, y'all bear with us because it looks like YouTube's having some issues tonight once again. Because I went to our YouTube studio page just a moment ago and it wouldn't load for me for some reason. So something is clearly going on, and it's getting mixed up. And also, I hear myself now as well.
Sorry, I had to mute. That was an accident.
I was about to say, I'm really losing my mind. I hear myself talking.
I'm losing my mind. But beyond that, I hope that does address that quite well. So sorry about that, everyone. But still, huge shout out to everyone who is supporting the fundraiser tonight. We've gotten up to $2.7 thousand on the fundraiser. Absolutely incredible, because we are only $250 away just about from the fundraiser goal. So everyone, make sure to continue to support the fundraiser and help it out so that way we can make sure to save more lives in Ukraine. The Late Spring Army has never missed a fundraiser goal in its entire history of over 2 years of war in Ukraine, and tonight is not going to be that night either. So please make sure to donate to Razom to Ukraine. The fundraiser is open at the moment, and with all of y'all banding together, we should be able to hit fundraiser goal and go even higher than that. But with that, we are now going to be moving on from that quick little side note. Sorry about that, everyone. And we're now going to be moving on into the area of Belgrade, because there is a lot of news that came out today of the Free Russian Army and their efforts and exploits inside of the area of Belgrade. We didn't get a lot of news today from the Free Russian Army's Shebekino front. It appears that area was largely quiet, but we did get to hear a little bit of great news today from the area of the Griberon front, although we haven't been able to confirm any large forward advances towards the area of Tomarovka, which we are assuming is the beginning phase of the encirclement of Belgrade on this western front. However, inside of the city of Belgrade, there were the heavy sounds of artillery fire, and not only the heavy sounds of artillery fire, but also signs of severe damage that is being caused from the shelling and fighting that is occurring around the outskirts of Belgrade on this side. The first bit we got to see was some brand new damage that was just caused overnight. We got to see that there was some fire damage to some of the vehicles, windows were blown out in a lot of the cars, and it appears that there was artillery damage to this area. We are not able to confirm at this moment whether the Russian the Russian border guards and the limited amount of forces in the Russian army and the Free Russian Army were fighting in this area, but it does appear that an artillery bombardment did occur or at least hit the general area. Moving on from that little bit of news inside of Belgrade and into our next bit, we got to hear a large and loud sound of a firefight going on in the area right outside of Belgrade on the eastern side of the city, showing that apparently Free Russian Army forces, the Russian border guards, and the Russian army are fighting in this area. That's the end of that clip right there, but once again letting us hear the sounds of firefights that are happening on the very outskirt of Belgrade, near to the area of Razom, from what we understand. Deeper inside of downtown Belgrade, we were also able to see a massive fire that is raging due to damage that was caused from shelling occurring near to the city, and we also got to see that Jimmy Ince threw in a $300 donation, taking the fundraiser over the goal. Let's get it, baby!
Let's go, baby. Let's go.
Absolutely incredible, and love to see it. Thank you so much, Jimmy, for that donation to the fundraiser. And we hit $3,070 exactly as of this moment. Thank you so much once again for that. And we also got to
another successful one for Razom for Ukraine. I'm telling you what, the LSA came through yet again.
Another successful one. Love to see it. Love to see it. And of course, we also love to see that the Russian border guards and the Free Russian Army appear to be going at it in the outskirts of Belgrade, because there is a plume of smoke coming from the distance, and also one right in front of the camera person, showing that there are heavy fights going on once again near the outskirts of Belgrade. Moving on from that and into our next bit of news, we also got to see more fires raging in and around the city in this clip. And it do be smoky.
Someone was placing a domino orders in the background while that was on fire.
Yeah, let's listen.
Hello, this is Domino's. I did not order a fire bliat. I wanted it crispy, not roasted. Oh, sorry, we'll turn down the oven next time, sorry.
It's so sorry, bliat. It's so sorry. We will make sure to learn a lesson. But beyond that, we are seeing that the city of Belgrade is under a heavy barrage, and not only are they under a heavy barrage, they are once again suffering. And it doesn't look like it's a fun time in Belgrade. It looks like the Free Russian Army is attempting to encircle the city and also engage the limited number of Russian border guard and Russian army forces inside the area, and it appears that they're doing a fairly good job at targeting and hitting their forces. However, over on the western front, in the area of Gryvron, we did get to see confirmation today that the Free Russian Army has taken over the town of Gorkovsky here in these two clips. The first one shows us the flag of the Free Russian Army being held up near the administrative building of Gorkovsky, confirming that the Free Russian Army does control the town. And then we also got to see another additional picture that we actually put on Twitter, showing once again the Free Russian Army inside of the area of Gorkovsky and standing on the Russian flag and also the flag of the Oblast as they show that they are in control of the area. Once again, really interesting to see that they have a lot of Western small arms. It looks like nothing but CZ Brens and M4s of a sort, or an AR type platform, and once again having taken control of Gorkovsky. This is according to, I believe, Deep State UA, which we believe may be slightly incorrect about the positions of Free Russian Army forces, because in the area of the eastern front near Shabakino, we have been able to confirm that the Free Russian Army had to have made it far farther than they're showing on their map to be able to fire any kind of a grad or an MLRS into the city of Belgrade. Moving on from that, however, and towards the area of Gryvron and Kazinka, we did get to see the Freedom of Russia flag, or the Free Russian Army's flag, once again flying over the area. From what we assume, this is inside of the town of Gryvron, and once again confirming that the city is completely under Free Russian Army control, and that they are continuing to absolutely hammer, obliterate, and destroy Russian border guard and Russian army forces in the area as they continue to advance on their main objective and goal of sieging and capturing the city of Belgrade, a city with a population of 330,000 people that may be possible recruits for the Free Russian Army to take on and build their forces with. Moving on from that news, that's really all we had from the Free Russian Army today. It seems to have been a slightly more quiet day than normal, but that does not mean that it's been quiet around the world as far as conducting some kind of armed action against the Russian Federation. Some people heard today, and this is something I did not include in our Ukraine war map, but I will talk about it on a limited level. Some people were able to hear today that, again, the French president, Emmanuel Macron, made a statement saying that combat troops of the French army may possibly end up in Ukraine here in the future. Not that he said something along the lines of, not that I want to do it and we're never going to act first, but if it becomes necessary, French combat forces could be sent into Ukraine. Not special forces repairing the trucks like we originally heard weeks ago, but actual combat forces meant to directly engage and destroy the Russian army inside of Ukraine. A lot of people are saying that this stance is a little hardline, and some people are saying that he ought to calm it down and cool down a little bit, because that's absolutely bonkers. That would lead to World War III, and the West is a little too soft these days to actually go into a war for the right cause. Some other people are actually agreeing with Macron's stance and saying that it is a very strong stance, one that the West should be looking for, because the West shouldn't be bending its knee to Russian aggression or Russian authoritarianism and tyranny. They should actually be putting their foot down and standing strong against this threat that the Russian Federation is facing against Ukraine and the rest of Eastern Europe and the NATO alliance as a whole. A lot of people have been talking about this stuff. A lot of people. And Matthew, I know that you really have some interesting statements to make about what Macron is saying, because what Macron is saying is absolutely interesting. I mean, it's really interesting because the French, at this point on an official level, are practically geared to war.
Yes, indeed. The French are out for blood once again, and we are learning that France's Macron has begun floating the idea of sending combat troops to Ukraine. And what are your thoughts? 72% of you said, I agree with Macron's stance, and 10% said, how about we wait until World War III before doing that, and 8% said, I disagree with Macron's stance. And me personally, I would say hold off on combat troops, because at the moment Ukraine is sieging mainland Russia, which could lead to a collapse of the Russian economy if it keeps up at this rate with these attacks on oil refineries. That's one way the war could come to an end. And also, Ukraine is pushing these soldiers back, and they're holding them off and properly defending their territory. So to me, unless something drastic happens where Ukraine starts getting severely pushed back, or things start going against Ukraine's favor, I would say wait until then, because sending combat troops to Ukraine likely will start a global confrontation between the West and Russia, and I think we should try to avoid that at all costs if we can avoid it, because that could lead to a lot more suffering than simply what's happening inside of Ukraine. But there may come a time when we need to do that. I'm glad Macron is speaking up, though, but I don't think now is the time. And also, by the way, he didn't actually suggest to do that now. He said later. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say, I would agree with Macron's stance, but I don't think we should ever seriously vibe for French forces to be in Ukraine. It's a bit of a double-edged sword, because I like the idea of the stance that Macron is making. It is certainly one that I think many Western countries should be making, because the Russians are very apt to try and escalate, even when there's nothing going on and we really aren't doing anything against them. Putin will just come out of the blue and go, "We have nuclear weapons. We could kill everyone." And it's like, why the hell would you say that? It's just a blatant escalation for no reason. And then we sit back and really do nothing in response. With what's going on in Ukraine, I think the stance should have been from the beginning is either you stop fighting in Ukraine or we get involved and immediately escalate, because the Russians are willing to always escalate. We ought to escalate all the way up to the point that we're on the brink of an actual war, and then see who blinks first. That's usually how a lot of things have been done, and I know that's a really dangerous and kind of a risky move to make, but usually it's ended up producing some pretty positive results, like the Cuban Missile Crisis or Operation Able Archer back in 1985. And many other instances that we've seen throughout history where things have gotten almost to the point that it was about to be an all-out war. Usually everyone would blink at the same time, and finally some kind of concessions and agreements would be made that appease the West and slightly appease the Soviets and now the modern day Russians. So going off of that, that's what I would have to say. I agree with Macron's statement on, but I would not like the idea of just immediately, without saying, hey, these guys are about to go in, no lie, they're right in Romania or Poland right now. So I would sit there and get to the negotiating table before we send them in, because yeah, it'll be a full-on world war, but you know you're going to get obliterated in it, and then that's just a losing war for you all around, no matter how it goes. Whether it stays a conventional war or whether it turns into a nuclear war, that is a losing war for Russia on every single end. So going off that, I feel like that's the best way that it should be done, so that way it forces them to the negotiating table, but it shouldn't be something where it's just, you know, everything's doing whatever it is. There's really no statements being made, and then, whoop, the French are in. Like, that would be a bad way to do it, because now we've escalated into a possible world war, and we haven't been able to even escalate enough on the diplomatic end where they would blink and start making concessions. Also, I see a lot of people in the chat saying, who would the French send in? What French units would be sent in from the French army? A lot of people are saying the French Foreign Legion. I would have to disagree. I actually think it would most likely be the French armored units, which are the blindé units. I don't really know how they're pronounced, but let me see if I can go the French, I think it's the blindé, French armor units. And let me see if I can go and find the other ones. So let's see here. So, the char de combat. So, it would probably be a unit a lot like, let me see, is this unit still in existence? Yeah, it still is. It would probably be a unit a lot like the 501st Combat Tank Regiment that's sent to Ukraine, because the climate and the terrain in Ukraine, well, not really the climate, but more so the terrain itself, is more conducive to that of armored warfare than it is to infantry warfare in most instances. Unless if you get to a city like Avdiivka or Bakhmut, then it's conducive to infantry fighting, but for the most part, armored warfare is what occurs on the flat plains and steppes of Eastern Europe. It's very rare to see anything else occur, and that's why Soviet doctrine and modern Russian doctrine relied so heavily on armored forces, is because that is the most practical thing for dealing with the wide open areas of the Warsaw Pact and the Soviet Union back in the day. Nowadays, that isn't necessarily the best. It's usually, let's see, the best thing I could say, it's usually a bad idea, I guess is the best way for me to explain it, because usually they get blown up by the drones, and, you know, that is what it is, so they never really make it anywhere. But with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion, on what the French would do, what unit they would possibly send. It wouldn't be the 501st exactly, but it would be armored unit of a sort, or armored units, and then they'd be accompanied by infantry, air defense, and other supporting units like logistics companies, but the armored units would make up the bulk of the French army and their operations inside of Ukraine. But moving on from that, talk about the French, because they are always a part of the Ukraine war news these days, it's time for us to start moving into Ukraine itself and start talking about these location unknowns, or particularly the one location unknown that we have today. It is literally just a casualty report. This is a badge of pride for me, y'all. I just want to bask in this moment because I try so hard each and every day to geolocate all of the clips and figure out their general location and put them on the map. And today was the day that I was able to do it for every single marker except for the Russian loss report, which never has the location. It's just the thing. So gotta say, did pretty good today. Pretty happy with myself. Not patting myself on the back, but I am. But with that, it's time for us to get into that casualty report because it was impressive today. And here it is. Ooh!
Oh my goodness, man. 11 Bobcats. All the troop losses are looking juicy. I'm telling you what, if the Kyiv Independent, if any of their journalists are listening, I'm with the person over there on the right, the Canadian, who says we need to add oil refineries to that losses list. We need to do it. We added the submarines. We need those oil refineries on there because they're starting to become such a regular destruction, an occurrence. We need to have those on there.
I would agree. Traveler, I agree with Traveler completely. But beyond that, 11 Bobcat skid steers were completely destroyed today. A big loss. But more so, the losses in every other category were whoppers. 1,160 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, which is amazing and massive. Not only that, but 24 armored personnel carriers were also destroyed, along with 49 supply trucks, 11 main battle tanks, 28 artillery pieces, 4 drones, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, and that was the whole loss report of the day. It was huge in every single degree. And I gotta say, it is amazing. It is truly incredible to see these kinds of losses, and I hope that we get to see these losses continue on in this sort of a form. It means that the Russian army is being decisively defeated inside of Ukraine, and it means that their time is most likely nigh. But we're going to be moving on from this casualty report, because really quickly, I want to take a moment, while we're at this point in the stream, to thank everyone who has donated to the fundraiser tonight and has gotten it up to nearly $3.5 thousand. I did see Hal Rose's, I believe it was like a $400 donation come in, and a huge shout out to you, but I want to make sure that we call all of y'all off, whether we recognized y'all a little while ago or not, and thank each of y'all individually for supporting this fundraiser. Y'all never have to support anything on this channel with your own money. You don't have to support the channel through super chats, you don't have to support the fundraisers that we run, but y'all choose to, and I believe that that is a incredibly kind thing of y'all, and that's why we always want to make sure to call each and every one of y'all out individually by name when we can and recognize y'all for the amazing efforts that y'all have done that have gone above and beyond what a normal person would ever do. And so, Matthew, let's name them off.
All right, so our top donors of the night thus far are Hal Rose, putting in that massive $333 donation, which makes that one the largest one of the night. We also have a $300 from Just Chillin', Jimmy Hintz, and then a $250 from Repo Man 46, a $150 from DCC Prime 1, as well as a $100 from some guy called the Enforcer, another $100 from Plant Lady. Then we have one from Hal Rose, another one from Say What, and then we have a $54 from Paramecium 13, along with a $50 from Greg Carrier, Panama Floyd, Dad Good, Say What once again, and Axel K, and as well as Tina, and JD Mako 23, Rob Horvath, and then we have a $5 from Chris. And once again, huge shout out to everyone who's donated tonight, because we have yet another successful fundraiser for Ukraine. And like the Enforcer said earlier, we have raised over $1.3 million for Ukrainian charities over the lifetime of this channel, and it's growing each and every Sunday. So a huge shout out to all of you for that. And Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta give a huge shout out to all of y'all once again, both the people we are able to shout out and the people we aren't able to shout out, because it is unbelievable and incredible to know that so many of y'all have supported this fundraiser and helped it to get to this point. It's truly unbelievable. The war has been going on for 750 days. It's in its 3rd year now. We have already gone through 2 whole years before this, and these fundraisers are still passing fundraiser goals. That is commendable and truly amazing to know that the Lee Spring Army is continuing to send its regards around the world to where they're felt inside of Ukraine, and let them know that there are people out there on every corner of the globe that still back up the Ukrainians and support them and even help them out in their war effort, helping them out on the humanitarian side, so that way the Ukrainian government can completely focus on the martial side of the war and hope to march their soldiers to victory, back to the Ukrainian borders that were seen in 1991. That's something that I hope we get to see, and hopefully so, the Lee Spring Army will play a great part in this, at least the best we can. And so with that, I got to thank every single one of y'all once again. Once again, to all the folks we called out right there who threw in massive amounts of support to the fundraiser, and everyone we weren't able to call out as well, because there were a lot of people that throw in support that's below $50, and we would love to call all of y'all out, but sadly there are so many of y'all, it would be pretty hard to do that. It would take about 30 minutes or so, and sadly that is a lot of time. But with that, we still appreciate every single one of y'all greatly, and it's amazing to know the Lee Spring Army does its thing. And now we can actually say that y'all are helping the Lee Spring Army's flag to fly high, because the Lee Spring Army flag is actually out there. We're not going to plug that tonight, though, like we did last night, because it's a fundraiser night, so we want y'all to be supporting the fundraiser instead. But we will be back to our normal thing of plugging the LSA flag back on Tuesday. But with that,
that's true. And also real quick, I do want to say that so far we've recruited 3 people that are willing to take the LSA flag into Ukraine. So I know at least one of those will make it there. So we hope to have that LSA flag actually on the Ukrainian battlefield to give it to the soldiers themselves, a signed copy, of course, sometime in the future, hopefully in the next month or so.
Hopefully so. And once again, if you are a Ukrainian soldier or a member of the armed forces of Ukraine that would like to have a LSA flag, reach out to us over Twitter in our DMs and let us know that you're in the Ukrainian military. Give us a little bit of information of how to get the flag to you over there in Ukraine, and we will send it over your way. We cover the costs of sending flags to the Ukrainian army because we want them to know that the Lee Spring Army is behind them all the way, and if they would like a flag to show that they love the channel and that the channel loves them, we'd be more than happy to do that absolutely free. And so with that, I hope that does address that quite well, and we are now moving on from that little bit of news and on into the front lines of Ukraine. It's time for us to talk a little bit about what's been going on in the Northeast, which is absolutely nothing, funnily enough. There's nothing going on up here at the moment on video and picture evidence. We do hear of ongoing fighting inside of the Kremena Forest, but beyond that, there isn't any video or picture evidence coming out, so we're assuming it's very stagnant fighting, and at that, most likely an artillery battle at this point. Moving on from the northeastern area and further on down into Bakhmut, however, we did get news from the 92nd and the 93rd Brigades, 2 sister units that are both fighting in the southern flank of Bakhmut, showing that they were continuing to engage and destroy Russian forces within this area of the front. We got to see that right here, as the 92nd Brigade was once again targeting and destroying a large amount of Russian armored vehicles. All right, Russian! We see their emblems right there, and we can see them going for the T-72B3 here first, hitting it on the left side and knocking it out. We can now see the tank also getting hit again. And we can see them just hitting them over and over and over, destroying multiple T-72B3s. Man, impressive.
They're knocking them out faster and faster. Hot diggity dog.
Good googly moogly. That thing is juicy. Good googly moogly. And we can see them now going for a BMP and knocking it out as well. And I mean, they're just going ham. Having a fun time at it. Knocking out a lot of Russian armor. You got to realize this stuff is expensive, not cheap by any mean of the imagination, and the imagination can be mean.
And it's always so nice to see such expensive equipment being knocked out with such a cheap munition, just a simple drone and a bomblet. That's got to be insult to injury.
Yeah, and it's just a couple of $1,000s to destroy hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars of equipment. Incredible stuff.
Hey, I'm no investor, but that's a good return on investment.
That's what they call an ROI. But moving on from that and into the 93rd Brigade, we got to see this very interesting video from the 93rd showing off one of those stupid Russian naval mortar MTLBs, and they also showed the clip of them destroying it. That's what happened to Moscow today, funnily enough.
БУ — это же установка для уничтожения подлодок и глубинной бомбы. Да, и глубинной бомбы. Каким образом вы используете данный боеприпас и насколько это эффективно?
Если одна такая бомба попадет в дом, от дома ничего не останется.
Now we're going to be muting that because, oh, that sounds copyrighted. But we can see the drone coming in. We can see that stupid mine-launching MTLB thing down there on the road, and they have no idea that this is the last time they're going to be in that goofy-looking vehicle. And you know, the Fighting 93rd leaves behind no one. Oh, and there it is. And there it goes. Ooh, right there, right below the launcher. And we see some more grainy footage being played on an old 80s TV. Maybe a 1990s TV. But we can see another drone coming in and hitting this supply truck, knocking it on out as the driver tries to escape the explosion. And that's the end of that clip. But a huge credit to the Fighting 93rd, continuing to try and destroy Russian artillery in the area, and also the supply trucks that try and keep them going and keep them alive. Seems as though the Russians are running out of logistics on really every single angle. But moving on from that, it's time for us to get on down out of the Bakhmut area and on down towards Avdiivka. Because y'all know the Russians' favorite national sport? Do you know what it is, Matthew?
Lion.
Looting. It's a word that starts with an L, but it's not lying. It's looting. And they're already getting to looting inside of Avdiivka. We can see this guy here pretty much making an advertisement about the entire city, telling Russians from all over to hurry, get to Avdiivka and steal everything you can. So here's the clip, and I'm going to read the translation. Larissa, I love you. I'm in Avdiivka. Here, look. These are the sights of Avdiivka. If you don't believe me, look, I'm in Avdiivka. Damn, dude, how many times are you going to say that? Like 9? Like we already got it the first time. Look how destroyed everything is here. And I can't play the audio because it has copyrighted music in it, but if y'all can hear this guy, he's actually excited to be here right now. He's like, look, it's all destroyed. Isn't that cool? Like, he's talking like that. Let's come closer. I'm walking, Larissa. I'm here in Avdiivka. Damn, dude, we got it. Like, you said it like 9 times. Everyone didn't believe I came here. I'm a volunteer. Larissa, I love you. I'm in Avdiivka.
This dude's on something, man.
Yeah, this guy is on Crocodile right now. Like, no doubt about it. Also, a huge shout out to whoever threw in 169. Nice. But
hey, nice.
hey, nice. But Larissa, there's everything in these houses. There are TVs and everything. We just need a vehicle to get it all out of here. Wow. Wow, this guy.
He's so happy about stealing.
Dude, this guy, you could tell, man, he is just into it. He loves it. In Thomas Garden, Matthew, why in the hell? He said this is 100% CIA BS. Hey, dude, don't call us out. We're doing our thing. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? But anyways, moving on from that clip, you can see this guy is looting in Avdiivka, clearly in Avdiivka. But we're going to be moving on up into the northern area where looting appears to be the least of the Russians' concerns, as their BMP-3s and other vehicles are getting obliterated by overwhelming fire from the 47th Brigade. Here's the clip. We're going to be muting that, but we can see the BMP-3 already roasting as the Trap remix hits.
Look, there's even smoke coming out of the barrel, man. It's a smoking gun.
Man. That's it, man. I have no comment. That's just all I can say is man. But that little BMP-3 is continuing to roast. It's like a fine... you know, Matthew, I feel like there's going to be a new... You know, Matthew, that's what we ought to do on the merch store, Matthew. Hear me out. Make a line of coffee and call it Russian roast. Like Colombian roast, but Russian.
Oh my gosh, dude, that is such a good idea. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, that actually is a good idea. It's just, I just literally had the idea for the packaging in my head right now, man. Okay, I'm going to write that one down. I'm going to let you get back to it. I'm going to write that down for real, though.
Okay, so while I filibuster, while Matthew's off air, writing down that idea, because I just came up with that one looking at this beam. Oh my god, and there it goes. Critical ammunition detonation. That BMP is done. And we get to see an instant replay of it as well.
Russian roast coffee.
Dude, and everyone loves that idea. Everyone in the chat is like, that is brilliant.
That really is brilliant.
Dang it,
I literally
man.
just
Now
had the whole plan built in my head, right as you said that.
Matthew, now I have an idea for that, and some clown idiot out there is going to steal our idea because I said it on air. So we got to hurry and get that one out fast. Like, we got to get that one out now. But
man, nobody does merch like us, man. Like, I can be on this thing quick. Like, in fact, that might actually replace next month's merch, actually.
It might actually. Let's see. Someone said, yeah, well, I don't know about that. We usually want to keep things inside the Lee Spring Army. Someone said, let's go do something with someone else. We usually like to be LSA all the way. You know what I mean? Put an LSA in the chat if you agree. But moving on from that, and out of that clip, we then got to see another clip from the 47th Brigade showing more attacks that they conducted on the Russians today near the area of Stepove and Berdichi. This is kind of like an additional clip of the BMP-3 before it blew up in the last clip. But we can see that BMP-3 right there, and it hit a mine. Boom, shakalaka. It's done for. And you know, some people are asking questions about like the roast quality. Like we would get the strongest roast that we could for that one because it's kind of a part of the joke. Because you know, like the Russians get roasted badly out there on the line, so we would make sure it's the strongest roast we could ever get, package it in a really cool way. That would be neat as hell. And oh, dude, oh my god, dude, they were slamming this thing. They hit it with an FPV drone right here. You see that drone going in and hitting the interior of the BMP-3. And then the Russian comes out, man. He's like, oh, blit, things are not good, blit. Things are not good. Oh, blit. Oh, blit. Oh, blit. It's sucking, blit.
Oh, dear, man. Man, it's like when those gangsters pull out their pistols and start firing at people's feet. I'm like, dance. It's like literally that. Oh, man. Real quick, you know, we can have Russian roast. And to commemorate a fallen person, we can have the hot dog roast.
Oh
my goodness.
Oh, no, better yet,
the flavor of relish cooked into the burn.
Better yet, Matthew, I have a better idea. We would that wouldn't be a roast, that would be a slinky, so that way you could always put the slinky at the top of the stairs and say that they're just tumbling down to the bottom, you know what I mean?
Oh, that'd be good too, man. I'm telling you what.
But anyways, the rest of this clip is just showing us what was in the last one, but I got both of them so that way you would have two different videos to look at, in case y'all clicked on the map, link in the description below, and checked it out. But moving on out of that map, and a little bit moving on out of this area of the map near Krasnoyarivka and Berdichi, and moving further south and into the direction of Novomikhailivka, we did get to see that another Russian assault was attempted today and completely stopped by the 79th Air Mobile Brigade that is currently inside of Novomikhailivka. We got to see that on film here as a large amount of armor got destroyed just out. Oh, apparently it's a little spicy, so we won't be able to show that. But moving on to our next clip, we did get to see some T-62 MVs that it got abandoned in the area. T-62s have been in service with the Russian military since 1962, and it seems as though they are still in service with the Russian military because they're running out of tanks, and it looks like they have no idea of really replacing these things in the near future, or for that matter, putting them in museums. It looks like they're going to be destroyed out there on the battlefields, and that's going to be their final resting place instead of a nice, luscious museum. And so with that, I have to say that. And moving on, and also, yeah, thank you, man. I was looking at that, I was like, what the hell does that even mean? It's like, what the hell? But anyways, moving on from that, and out of the Novomikhailivka area, we're now moving on out of the area, and down near Yekharivka, where we got to see one of the units in this area clearing the trenches, and apparently they were clearing them a little too well. So moving on from that, and into the area of Verozhine, we also got to see that the Russians were trying to bomb Ukrainian forces in the village with RBK 500 cluster bombs, and this is what that looked like. And there's the clusters going off in the distance. We can't really confirm if there are any Ukrainian casualties or losses in this clip because it's so far away, we can't really tell much. So you see the smoke dissipating. That's really all we have, is just showing some Russian activity in this area of the line. And it appears to be quite limited. Only an artillery bombardment, not accompanied by any kind of an infantry assault or an armored assault.
Also, man, you wouldn't believe, like, I just had one email, and then I had, like, 3 emails come in of people volunteering to try to, like, basically make the coffee for us as well for the Russian roast. Apparently that piqued a lot of companies' interest out there as we said that.
Like companies?
Yeah, one company and one viewer as well.
Whack. Whack. Who would have ever thought? Could you text me what company that is?
I'll tell you off the stream.
Okay, all right. So with that, And believe it, but nothing really happened in the rest of the southern front today. It appears that the front was inactive from the Staromanivka direction all the way over to Lehove. From what we could tell on video and picture evidence, it seems as though this area of the front line was largely stagnant and quiet. Same with the area around Krenki. We know that the Ukrainian 36 Marines are still holding Krenki, but we have not gotten any additional information about their actions, activities, or even Russian activities and actions in the area. So it just seems as though these areas are completely quiet. The Russians aren't really engaging in any activity. The Ukrainians aren't either, and so the front line is largely stable here. But with that, it's actually time for us to move all the way up to the area of the city of Kyiv, because we have to address a very big thing that was done today, the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. And so, without further ado, here is the speech. Speech!
Дорогі українці, українки, підсумки цього дня та тижня. Передусім вдячність нашим воїнам. Саме час відзначити бойові підрозділи, які проявили себе найкраще. Куп'янський напрямок, 57-ма окрема мотопіхотна бригада імені кошового отамана Костя Гордієнка. Лиманський напрямок, 1-ша бригада оперативного призначення Національної гвардії імені гетьмана Петра Дорошенка, Буревій. Покровський напрямок, 55-та окрема артилерійська бригада Запорізька Січ. Оріхівський напрямок, 118-та окрема механізована бригада. Та Придніпровський напрямок, 35-та окрема бригада морської піхоти імені контрадмірала Михайла Остроградського. Та 123-я окрема бригада територіальної оборони. Дякую всім вам, воїни, за вашу силу, за ефективне знищення окупанта. Пишаюсь кожним нашим воїном, який здобуває результати для свого підрозділу, для побратимів, для всієї України. Хочу відзначити сьогодні також і всіх наших друзів у світі, які за цей тиждень допомогли, надали нам нові пакети підтримки, ухвалили нові рішення заради української сили. Сполучені Штати, дякую за пакет допомоги. Дуже важливо, щоб була відновлена стабільність у підтримці нашого захисту. Саме зараз і саме нашим українським захистом у цій війні вирішується, чи вдасться Путіну розширити зону руїн в Європі та світі. Зупинити його зараз найвигідніше для всіх. Данія. Дякую за черговий вже 16-й пакет оборонної допомоги, за артилерію, якої ми потребуємо. Німеччина. Дякую за щотижневі кроки для підтримки нашої країни та людей. Дякую усім державам, які приєднались до чеської ініціативи із закупівлі снарядів для України. Окремо я хочу відзначити Грецію за чітке розуміння загроз усім в Європі. Канада вдячна за приєднання до нашої коаліції дронів, і це зброя, яка довела свою надзвичайну ефективність. І в таких складних умовах війни недалекобійність нашої армії – це, очевидна, недалекоглядність деяких партнерів. Також я хочу сьогодні відзначити французьке лідерство в Європі. Ми цінуємо те, як президент Макрон напрацьовує стратегічну перспективу для Європи. Перспективу реальної, тривалої безпеки, яка можлива лише завдяки путінському програшу у цій війні. Ще одне. Цими днями російський диктатор імітує чергові вибори. Усім світі зрозуміло, що цей діяч, як було вже часто в історії, просто захворів владою і робить усе, щоб правити довічно. Немає такого зла, яке він не скоїть, щоб подовжити особисту владу. Немає нікого в світі, хто був би застрахований від цього. Дякую кожній державі, кожному лідеру, усім міжнародним організаціям, які називають і називатимуть ці речі своїми іменами. Все, що Росія робить на окупованій території України, є злочином. За все, що зроблено російськими вбивцями у цій війні та заради путінської довічної влади, має бути справедлива відплата. Він боїться найбільше тільки одного – справедливості. Жодної легітимності у цієї імітації виборів немає та бути не може. Цей діяч має закінчити на лаві підсудних в Гаазі. Саме це ми маємо забезпечити усі в світі, хто цінує життя і порядність. Дякую усім, хто з Україною та в Україні. Слава усім, хто б'ється та працює заради нашої держави і людей. Слава Україні!
And Hiram Slava.
Oh my god, you're so loud. 1 second, hold up. Oh my god, dude, I turned it up for the speech, and then you came in and you're like, Slava Ukraine. I was like, oh my lord. But beyond that, that is the end of President Zelensky's speech. And that moves us on into the next part of this stream. The part where we get to talk to all of y'all about all of the things that y'all are wondering about, have questions about, and everything else in between. It's an incredibly fun part of the stream, and I highly suggest y'all stick around tonight because we will be able to answer any question. There are no super chats tonight. We already addressed the super chats that came in earlier that weren't supposed to come in because it's Sunday and they're supposed to be turned off. But for some reason, YouTube allowed a couple of people to super chat. We don't know why. But beyond that, we will be getting to talk to all of y'all. Make sure to stick around because you don't have to throw in a super chat at all, and there isn't going to be a very short live chat segment tonight. The entire segment where we get to talk to y'all is a live chat segment. It's just endless. It's like unlimited soup and salad up in here. And so we get to talk to all of y'all about whatever y'all want to talk about. But before we get into that, I want to thank everyone tonight for helping this fundraiser to get to $4,038, $1,040 above the fundraiser goal of $3,000.
Tremendous.
That is absolutely incredible and tremendous. We could have never asked that much of y'all to even reach that fundraiser goal or to go over it. That is incredible. And I got to thank y'all for that. And I also have to thank everyone for coming in and watching the stream so far tonight. Tonight's been a whopper. It's actually the biggest stream that we've ever had in about 6 months, most likely. Tonight's live stream viewership got up to a peak of 11,250 people. And so far, over the entirety of the stream, 75,000 people have watched it right now. That is unbelievable. We have never had a stream like that, even recently, with our viewership getting up in the 8,000s and 9,000s. And I got to thank all of y'all who have come here tonight so much once again for watching this, but I want y'all to know that it's not over yet. We still have a little while to go, probably an entire hour of getting to talk to all of y'all, or however long we have questions coming in, really one or the other. And so, Matthew, take us on into it. But before we get into it, I also have to make sure that we address all of the top supporters, or the top donations that have been sent into the fundraiser for Razom for Ukraine. I don't know why I'm having such a hard time talking tonight, but Matthew, take it away.
All right, so we actually have 2 top donors since our last segment, and the big one is GTO Joe 04, who puts in a $250 donation, massive. And we also have a 50 from Bob Y. And thank you both, Bob and GTO Joe, for that very generous support to the fundraiser. You've brought us up to $4,038 in total, which is about $1,038 above goal. So the LSA has come through yet again, and a huge shout out to you all. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank both of y'all for the massive support. That was truly unbelievable. And y'all are helping to make this fundraiser and the amount it's raised possible tonight. I just can't believe that we've been able to do it again. Because one thing that I always have to say, y'all, is that we, in my mind, always think that these fundraisers are going to be like this fundraiser tonight is going to be the last one that actually gets over the fundraiser goal. Then the next one next week probably won't. That's always a constant fear in my head, and somehow, some way, that has never come true. Over 753 days, over 2 years of war, that fear in my mind has never come true, and this channel has always been able to greatly surpass the fundraiser goals and continue to make a massive effort helping out in Ukraine. That is incredible, and I gotta thank all of y'all once again for the massive amount of support that you all have shown Razom for Ukraine tonight. The support that they will be getting will incredibly help them to save lives of people in Ukraine. And every single dollar y'all have sent in is a huge help. To quickly explain how this works, because I've seen so many people asking questions about how our fundraiser structure works, because on YouTube it's completely different. You have some people who run like a Streamlabs thing for fundraisers, I believe, and then you have some people who say, give me the money and then I'll distribute it, and then you never really hear about how they distribute it. We run our fundraisers as transparently as we possibly can, and that is because we use YouTube's built-in system for fundraising, which is called YouTube Giving. You can actually pull up YouTube Giving on Google. Just type in YouTube Giving, and you can click on the first link in Google itself, since Google is the parent company of YouTube, will explain step by step how the YouTube Giving system works. But to explain really quickly how it works in my own words, YouTube Giving allows us to pick from a pre-selected list of nonprofits that that do humanitarian work, not military work, inside of Ukraine or anywhere around the world. You can actually pick the Salvation Army, the Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders. You can pick any nonprofit you want, even if they're not related to anything medical. It could be World Central Kitchen, International Fund for Animal Welfare, UNHCR, and we've actually ended up running fundraisers for all of these groups. But you can pick one on our end as the actual channel owner, and then all we get to do is select the amount, the fundraiser goal that we would like to have, and also how long the fundraiser will run, get to add our own little description to the fundraiser about what it's about, who it's for, that kind of stuff, and then we get to put it up. And then it runs, and when it runs, like tonight, y'all can throw in any amount y'all want. Literally, there's no limit. On Super Chats, which are support to this channel, which is something no one should have been able to do tonight, but two folks were able to, JD Mako and Rob Hovrath, which thank y'all once again for that. I hope y'all appreciate it through both of y'all support directly back into the fundraiser, since we weren't supposed to get Super Chats tonight. But you send in $100, like I did tonight, to the fundraiser. YouTube does not touch that money. They do not take any of that out. They take that $100, they put it into a bank account that YouTube has now opened up for this fundraiser specifically, that is earmarked for Razom for Ukraine. And then once the fundraiser ends, about a week later, they send the entire lump sum, once they do all the accounting and stuff, directly to Razom for Ukraine, and then they use the funds that were raised from this fundraiser. We have absolutely no involvement in touching the money that is sent through this fundraiser, which is why I only run fundraisers this way, because we never want anyone who may be new to this channel to have to ask the question, are they doing what they're saying they're doing with my money? You don't even have to ask that, because the systems run through YouTube, and we're just pretty much a third party that is sponsoring the fundraiser that we created. YouTube pretty much runs everything else on the finance side of things, with gathering up all the donations that come into the fundraiser and then sending them out to the nonprofit. It is the most transparent way to run it, in my opinion, considering it's built into the literal channel, the literal website we use to even run this stream. And not only that, we have been able to get confirmation from Razom for Ukraine, which we're running a fundraiser for tonight, that they have been actually receiving the donations that this channel has made in the thousands and tens of thousands of dollars back in the past, and actually thanked us for our efforts. The Lee Spring Army as well thanked all of us for our efforts in fundraising, and also said that they were going to be including us in one of their newsletters that's going to be coming out here in the near future, thanking the Lee Spring Army and the channel for everything that they've done, helping them out to help out in saving lives in Ukraine. So that is something I wanted to make sure to talk about, because so many new people are here tonight. We have 7,000 people on right now, an hour and 40 minutes in, and I want to make sure that y'all know how these fundraisers work, just in case if you've never run into one of these before in the whole Ukraine war world. But with that, if you like the way that this channel runs a fundraiser, put an LSA in the chat, because the LSA just means goodness. And a huge shout out to Alan Wright.
Smack that like.
And a huge shout out to Alan Wright, who just threw in a $100 donation to the fundraiser. I love your Revolutionary War soldier profile picture. I love that. That is great. But beyond that, put an LSA in the chat. But with that, Matthew, it's time for us to actually move on into them questions, because we have a massive amount of questions tonight, and I want to make sure that we get to is pretty much all of them. So what do we got?
And yes, it is time. And also, like I said, please press that like button. There's about 7,000 folks in the stream right now, and those likes could get very, very high indeed, which helps us put the news out there even faster the next time, and also to support Ukraine. But with that being said, we are actually moving on to our Morse code decoders of the stream. And tonight we had Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Bernew, Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Rumpelstiltskin, David Millsaps, and Toxic Bananas. They said the LSA Signal Corps reports tonight's Morse code message is, Moscow is looking like a moogliest jury target there ever was, and long live the LSA.
And that is the sound of money, and y'all hit the jackpot dead on the nail. That is the Morse code message of the night. Congratulations for getting that correct on the 753rd day of the war. I think Jurius was supposed to be Juicius, but I think I may have typed that wrong. But beyond that, congratulations on getting that Morse code message correct, y'all. That is incredible, and I can't believe y'all actually deciphered that one, because it was a goofy one. But still, thank y'all for that. And with that, let's get on into our first proper question.
And the first proper question is going to go to Burke, who says, how many refineries does Ukraine need to hit for a Russian fuel supply to implode on itself? And are enough of these in range from the Ukrainian border?
Yes, all of them, pretty much. That sounds stupid, but literally all of them are within range of the Ukrainian border at this moment. Well, at least like 80 to 90% of all refineries in Russia are, or at least 80 to 90% of all refinery production in Russia is near to the Ukrainian border and within striking distance. Right now, for the Russians to implode, the Ukrainians have already achieved that. When they knocked out around 20% of Russian refining abilities, they are already leading to an inevitable implosion of Russian strategic fuel reserves. We were actually able to number crunch after the stream last night, and we were able to find out that right now, with the current deficit that the Russians are running in consumption of oil daily and the strategic reserve that they have available to them, that means that they're probably going to run out of oil in approximately 6 months or 7 months at this point. If they're not able to find some way to get enough refined fuel products to be able to consume the amount that they're using each and every day. So right now, from what we understand, they will implode on themselves in about 6 to 7 months, and the Russian economy is going to grind to a halt, and the Russian military is probably going to grind to a halt as well at the exact same time. I hope that does address that the best I can, and we also have to keep in mind that that rate, that inevitable end to pretty much the Russian nation due to a lack of oil, is going to be rapidly accelerated because the Ukrainians are still attacking refineries daily at this point, different ones, knocking them off the line and making sure that they stay off. And if they continue to do that, and they are able to actually knock out 30 or 40% of Russian refining abilities, that means that the strategic oil reserves, at best, are probably only going to last another 3.5 months before they're completely depleted. Then, after the strategic oil reserves are depleted, the country of Russia is going to only be able to run as much of the military or as much as the economy as the refineries are able to produce practically on a daily basis at that point. And even then, there's going to be massive issues with that. So with that, I hope that does address that question incredibly well. I know we didn't really have a good answer for that last night, and I hope we were able to circle back around and get a really good answer for that question tonight instead. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And the next one is going to go to Howard T., who says, what is the impact of unrest in Russia having on Putin? He said, jail for anyone who speaks out, and so many are now, so what is really happening?
It's kind of the normal thing in Russia. It's pretty much a light version of a purge, because the modern Russian Federation doesn't like the look of sending people to the death camps and, and pretty much having them die. So they try and avoid that. So what they generally do is they imprison people, or they pretty much scare them into not saying anything. That's kind of how modern Russia works. That's really honestly how the Soviet Union worked after the death of Stalin, because it's a bit of a misnomer that gulags existed throughout the entirety of the the Soviet Union's history. Gulags really only existed in their primary form during the reign of Stalin from about the late 1920s. All the way up until his death in 1953. The gulags were quickly dismantled after his death. So that's kind of how the Soviets and the Russians have worked since then, is by jailing people and then forcing them into the Ukraine war in the modern sense, so that way hopefully they'll die on the front lines, pretty much a death sentence in its own way, or just putting them in prison and trying to pretty much whisk them away to a very obscure prison in the Arctic Circle, and then hope they just wait out their time up there and not say anything. And if they do get out, they're too scared to say anything else beyond that. So it's kind of the same old, same old. He's like technically, Russia's always tired of hearing about dissent on the government. One of the few times that they weren't was during let's see here, Gorbachev's reign. I was trying to think of his name. For some reason, I was going to say Brezhnev. But during Gorbachev's reign in the Soviet Union, there were two very liberal policies called Glasnost and Perestroika, which allowed for free speech within the Soviet Union. There was really no limit on what someone could do. They could say or do whatever they wanted to during Gorbachev's reign. And funnily enough, the people of Russia hate Gorbachev to this day and blame him for the collapse of the Soviet Union because he wasn't authoritarian enough. And that kind of gives you all a little bit of an idea of the Russian mindset, considering that they hate someone because they didn't put their boot down on their head every day, which is pretty bizarre. But nevertheless, kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of how the social situation works in Russia. It's kind of expected by even the Russian populace that there is no such thing as freedom of speech. It's whatever the government wants, and if you disagree with the government, you have the potential of being bullied into shutting your mouth or going into prison, one or the other, or ending up dying in Ukraine at this point in the modern day. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and also real quick, shout out to Mike Smith who put in a $50 donation, and that brought us up to $4,248 total raised
Hey!
tonight for Razom. And thank you very much, Mike, for that generosity. And with that being said, we're moving on to our next one here, which goes to Mark Gagne, who says that will the invasion inside of Russia help Putin in his mobilization plans?
Address that. Reread the line. Reread the line.
Mark says, will the invasion inside of Russia help Putin in his mobilization plans?
I kind of doubt it, because the Russians are actually downplaying it on an official level. Because I've been looking, because a lot of people think that I probably don't look at what the Russians say. I actually do, because I'm trying to see what they're trying to tell the public inside of Russia, and they're actually telling the public that the Free Russian Army is dead. They're not even in Belgrade anymore, is what the Russian official statements are. So there's no way they can actually help them in their mobilization efforts, because for really the entirety of the Russian Federation, nobody even knows that the Free Russian Army is bombarding Belgrade right now, because that information is being suppressed inside of Russia. And not only that, the official government statements are saying the contrary. They're saying that nothing is going on in Belgrade, and the Free Russian Army got obliterated in the first 2 days. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, because from what we can understand, it has no impact on conscription, because most people in Russia don't even know that that's happening. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Octavius, who says Russia will have to start protecting the refineries. And do you think this leaves an opening for Ukraine to strike the Crimean Bridge?
Possibly. Really, in reality, the reason why the oil refineries are not protected is because the Russian Federation has already run out of air defense to use. Most of it has been destroyed inside of Ukraine, or it's currently being deployed inside of Ukraine. So if they try and move anywhere else, they're going to be leaving some massive gaps in air defense on the front lines inside of Ukraine or near the Kerch Bridge. And to be honest with you, I think they'd rather strip frontline units of their air defense first to protect oil refineries before they ever stripped it from the Kerch Bridge, because yeah, the casualties can climb if the air defense is removed from the front lines, but if the Kerch Bridge is still there, at least those forces are able to be reinforced and supplied a small amount. But if you remove this, if you remove the air defense from the Kerch Bridge and the Kerch Bridge gets destroyed, now the Russians are really screwed, even if the air defense is still inside of Ukraine trying to defend the frontline units, because now they have no supplies to keep those air defense units running, or better yet, to even keep those infantry forces fighting on the lines that are currently holding back the Ukrainians from retaking everything, including the Kerch Bridge. So I have a feeling that it's not going to open up any opportunity here very soon for the Kerch Bridge to be attacked and destroyed due to a lack of air defense, because they're probably going to remove air defense from frontline areas first before they do it to the Kerch Bridge in response to the oil refinery attacks. And so with that, I hope that does address that as best I can, and we are on to the next one.
And now we have a question from Texan Dave, from Texas of all places, a place that I love. He says, how would Putin get troops to Moldova even if he wanted to?
He can't. There is no way for him to actually do that at the moment, because for Moldova, well, Transnistria to be reinforced originally, they actually had to fly in Russian forces to this airport here at Tiraspol, and it looks like it may actually still be used, or it's a abandoned military airfield. I can't really tell, because there's not really any air. Well, there's some Antonov 2s, but beyond that, there isn't really anything here. But from what I understand, the Russians would fly in their soldiers and equipment before this whole war in Ukraine went down, and that's how they were able to keep anything inside Transnistria. Or they would just drive them through Ukraine, but that ended in 2014. Now, because of the ongoing war in Ukraine, there's no way for them to get there. They can't drive through Ukraine because obviously they're at war with Ukraine, and they can't fly over Ukraine either into Moldova because they're at war with Ukraine. They also can attempt to try and reinforce their supply of Moldova from the west, because everything west of Moldova is a NATO country like Romania, Hungary, or Slovakia. And then you run into the same issue, that they're not going to allow the Russians to supply or reinforce any of their guys inside of Moldova, and they'll probably shoot down Russian aircraft that are violating their airspace. So at the moment, there's absolutely no way to reinforce or supply the Russian forces that are inside of Moldova, and from what we understand, it's a 1,500 strong unit. I would say about a regiment size, or maybe slightly a little bit larger than that, getting about halfway to the size of a brigade. And then the Transnistrians themselves, I believe, have about 4,000 of their own fighters, and then the Moldovans have around 6,000. So right now, both sides are on a 1-to-1 I guess you could say, ratio at the moment. One soldier in the Moldovan side for one soldier on the Transnistrian alliance side. So right now, the Moldovans could hold their own, and the Russians could possibly try and hold their own as well if the conflict remained entirely confined to Moldova. If the Ukrainians joined this war, it would be over for them. There's just no way they could try and stop anything happening at that point. But for now, they actually do run a good chance of holding their own for a while, unless well, due to a complete lack of reinforcements from the outside. I am so sorry, y'all, that I'm having a hard time talking tonight. I don't know what it is, but for some reason I can't come up with the right words to say. So sorry for all the stuttering and like the rambling and stuff, but I hope I'm making sense in between. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Wyatt Logan, who's been around for a very long time. And Wyatt has a good question. He says, how many Russian casualties do you think it will take for Russia to call it quits? Or will it be a social change in Russia for things to end the war?
I would have to say it's probably going to have to be a social change. I don't think any amount of losses for the Russians at this point is going to dissuade them from fighting this war, because I would have believed at the beginning of the war that nearing 500,000 dead would have been completely intolerable for a modern Russia, for really any modern country for that matter, because they are getting on up towards 500,000. Give it about another 2 months, they will probably pass 500,000 dead. And going off of that, well, not 500,000 dead, 500,000 dead and wounded. So you would think that that would have dissuaded them from fighting this war in the first place, but it didn't. They're just continuing on, and it looks like they have no signs of stopping at the moment. So I don't think that the losses are actually going to be what stops the Russians from fighting the war. I think it's going to be that their units will collapse eventually, and the Ukrainians hopefully will get supplied massively again to where they can push the Russians back, and if they get pushed all the way out of Ukraine or mostly out of Ukraine, then that will probably end the war. Or if there's some kind of a coup or the Free Russian Army really starts to take off inside of Russia, then that might also end the war as well. So that would be my answer. I don't really think losses at this point are really going to end the war, although I do say every day that losses help the war come to an end quicker, and it does, because there's only an amount of losses that the Russians can take before something socially starts to change in Russia. I have a feeling that that number is probably around 700, 800,000 wounded and killed. I have a feeling that by the time they reach that number, something will have to happen in Russia, because they're probably going to have to start calling up more mobilizations, and that will be wildly unpopular with the Russian public, like we saw earlier before in the war when they called up the partial mobilization of 300,000. And so with that, I hope that does address that question quite well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Wondering, who says, I was wondering, and Wondering is always doing that. He's always wondering a lot. He says, could a fed up group of Russian oligarchs remove Putin on their own?
They could try, but the thing is that I think the FSB is so entrenched into the oligarchic circle in Russia that whenever anyone tries to even talk about a conspiracy against Putin, they usually get offed or killed before that conspiracy can even grow. Because the oligarchs end up dying at a pretty rapid pace. If anyone ever pays attention to the life and death of oligarchs, they die rapidly. I mean, they're dropping like flies all the time, and they're replaced by someone else. So I have a feeling that right now, Putin's got his thumb down on the oligarchies so much that there's really no way that they can do anything to try and overthrow Putin, at least for now. Unless if the FSB begins to wane or Putin's attention is turned elsewhere, and then they might be able to pull something off. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And we are on to the next one.
And our next question goes to Mr. Juice. Straight juice. And they say,
Juice!
how long until wholesale conscriptions start in Russia now that Putler has his election finalized?
It will probably be maybe another 6 to 8 months, and then we might see some limited conscriptions of some sort, but I don't think we're going to be seeing any kind of massive mobilization effort of the Russian nation. Because we have to remember that the Russians are trying to say that everything's under control in Ukraine and they're winning. And the easiest way to prove those statements wrong is to tell the public, we're doing so bad, we're mobilizing into a war economy and conscripting every able-bodied man into the military as quickly as we can. That would easily disprove those statements and would probably cause a massive upheaval in Russia that would lead to the end of Putin's government. So I have a feeling that it'll be 6 to 8 months, but even then it'll probably be a very limited mobilization again of maybe 200,000, 300,000 citizens, and that's it. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one is going to go to Neil Vizanot, who says, how do we know which drone attacks are coming from Ukraine and which ones are from the FRA? And is Ukraine taking credit for specific ones?
From what we understand, most if not all drone attacks that happen at long range are happening from Ukrainian forces. From what we've seen so far, the Free Russian Army has not taken responsibility for any of the oil refinery attacks, and they also only have shorter range drones like Mavics and drones similar to those. So we have a feeling that none of the larger drone attacks on the refineries are being conducted by the FRA. They're probably being conducted entirely by the AFU instead, and so I hope that answers that well, because the only drones I've ever seen the FRA have is smaller, short-range drones that maybe can travel about 10 miles at best. And that's the only thing we've seen in Belgrade. Everything else, either the Ukrainians have taken credit for, or they're such long-range drones and they have a specific design that gives away that they're a Ukrainian drone, probably operated by Ukraine. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, and we are on to the next one.
And also, I just want to tell y'all, in case nobody's noticed, we have hit 172,000 subscribers today. That was earlier today. And also, we're actually climbing halfway up to the point of reaching 173,000 subscribers, all in the same day. We went from 171. So we're getting close to almost a 2,000 subscriber gain in one day. It's kind of crazy. And thank you all for subscribing as well. But with that, our next question is going to go to Crystal Blue, who says, do you think Putin will shut down YouTube and social media now that the election is over?
I think they actually did that earlier in the war. Way back in like the first 3 months of the war, I think YouTube was banned in Russia. So I would have to say, yes, you'll ban them, because from what I understand, they have already been banned for almost 2 years now at this point. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And also, that's why we don't really see any Russians here on YouTube. I'm actually going to go into the audience analytics here really quickly and see if I can get a breakdown on the countries. And let me see if the Russians even show up on the list. So, actually, as a matter of fact, there have been Russians that have watched this channel. But it is an incredibly small number. To give you all a breakdown, wait a minute, hold up. This is only over the past 28 days? So over the past 28 days, this channel has gotten 4.5 million views. And out of those 4.5 million views, 12,278 of them have been from inside the Russian Federation. So there is a very...
What?
Yeah, that's shocking, actually.
Wait a minute, say that number again.
12,278 unique viewers have been from the Russian Federation out of the 4.5 million that have watched over the past month, pretty much.
How's that though? Because to my knowledge, they have to use a VPN to get on YouTube. So how's it tracking back to Russia?
I have absolutely no idea. That is actually interesting to see that they are able to get on at all. But what's even more interesting is that only 7,000 Ukrainians have watched this stream.
Only 7,000 during the month?
Yeah, out of 4.5 million views, only 7,000 of them were from Ukraine. We get more Russian viewers by almost 100% than we do Ukrainians, which is really interesting, actually.
That's crazy.
That's whack. Whack. And then we only have 8,800 Japanese viewers. We get more Slovenian viewers than we do Japanese viewers.
That's wild, man. Like, when you start calling out the demographics of the channel, like, it's shocking to see, like, how many different countries we get. And also, it's like, Russia? It's like the place we talk about and bash the most is watching? What?
Man, that's all the FSB guys they have that click onto the channel every night to watch. That's
all.
Oh, yeah. Because there's no way in
all
hell...
of those people are probably hitters who are out looking for us at this point. They're just keeping a track of them. Are they still streaming at night, Bliat? They haven't been hit.
So also, this is probably something that's nuts to all of y'all as well, is that Germany is our 5th largest viewership by nation at 2.2%. Out of 4.5 million views over the past month, 96,000 of them, 96,400 of them have been Germans. But what's wild about that is that the Netherlands makes up 2.1% of our viewership and has 95,073 Dutch viewers have watched this channel. So Germany and the Netherlands are pretty much neck and neck in the demographics for how many of them have been watching this channel over the past month.
That's wild too, but like, how many of our viewers are from Australia? Because I know we have a huge following from there.
So, I have to preface this every single time so that we all know, like, the kind of statistics here. Out of 4.5 million views over the past month, 5.4% of them have been from Australia, and out of that, 243,000 viewers are Australians over the past 28 days.
Oh wow, that's a good bit. Also, by the way, I saw Melinda. Melinda. I saw Melinda Grifford Vaughn say maybe those are the bots, the Russian viewers. That could be the Russian bots, the propaganda ones that Putin sends out. That could possibly be it. Because why would a Russian get on a VPN and select their VPN country as Russia itself? That sort of like defeats the point of using the VPN. So I don't know. It could be the bots.
Also, another thing that's interesting is that I went to our whole lifetime of the channel here, and I'm looking at the analytics here. Over the lifetime of the channel, the number one viewership of this channel are Americans, making up 50.5%, literally just eking out the majority. Because beyond that, if it was like 49 point something percent, the Americans would even be a minority as well. There wouldn't be a majority, a simple majority viewership on this channel. The next largest group are Canadians, who make up 9.6% of our viewership. The next group beyond that is the UK. Massive respect to the UK viewers, by the way, because you all have to get up at like, hell, 3 o'clock in the morning most times, 4 o'clock in the morning to watch this show. Y'all make up 8.1% of the viewership. Australians make up 5.1%. The Germans make up 2.8%. And then the Dutch make up 2%. And the Swedes make up 2% too. So the Swedes and the Dutch are like vying for 6th place right now, pretty much.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we actually, interestingly enough, we also get the average view duration sorted on this channel as well. And based off of this, the highest view duration, oh my god, dude, you're not going to believe this. The highest view duration by any country that watches this channel is Liechtenstein.
What's the view duration?
21 minutes and 10 seconds on average for Liechtensteinian viewers.
Dang, man. The Liechtenstein people are the only people that have the attention span left, man. Jeez.
Dude,
I bet crazy. America probably has the lowest. I know America's got to be the lowest because our attention spans are like minimal.
You went on with that, man. It was like, oh, no, because this is going to blow you away. America's number 2, and they're not that far behind the Liechtensteinians.
Oh, really? Who's number 3? I'm curious now.
Norway.
Norway.
And
I'm telling you what, they got good attentions too. I'm glad to see it.
No, they don't actually. They are lacking a whole minute and 30 seconds behind the Americans in average view duration, and the Liechtensteinians only beat out the United States by 5 seconds.
Oh, dang, man! They just did that just to get at us, basically.
But it's mental, dude, because like over the lifetime of the channel, there have only been 21 views from Liechtenstein. Like, only 21 of them. Over the whole lifetime of the channel. Over 63 million views on this channel. Only 21 of them have been from Liechtenstein. But they watched.
Where the hell's Liechtenstein even at?
I'll show you. It is this tiny... It's like one of the smallest countries in Europe. This is it right here. Liechtenstein. It's right in between Switzerland and Austria.
Oh, they got some nice land. I've heard about Liechtenstein. I knew generally like it was in this area, but oh man, they've got some very nice land. I'm telling you what. Let's see. Oh, okay. Liechtenstein. What is that? A mountain over there in the distance?
Yeah, that's a mountain out there.
All right. They've got a good place. They've got I don't know about his camper though. Right here in the driveway, that's a little bit funky, but a nice place.
Man, Liechtenstein is sweet. It's a really cool country, and I think their main export is some kind of a interesting thing. I know the main export of Luxembourg is dentures, which is a very interesting fact. But also, I see so many people asking about the demographics because I actually haven't been able to see any of the live chat because I've been looking straight at analytics. Tom Exman said, how many are from the Baltics? Let's see. Well, I can try and look through and find the Baltic states and then give you all the report on each one. So, Estonia is the biggest of all of them at 97,000, well, at 0.2% of all of our views over 2 years of running this channel. The next one is Lithuania at 0.2% as well. And then the next one beyond that is Latvia at 0.1% of all the viewership on this channel. Let me sort it by views again, and let me see. Let's see here. So, interestingly enough, Filipino viewers make up 1.2% of this channel's viewership over its entire existence. So they're like at number 8 or well, number 9 actually. Denmark is number 10, Norway's number 11, Finland's number 12, Iceland's number 13, South Africa is number 14, France is number 15, Belgium is number 16, Spain is 17, number 18 is Switzerland, number 19 is India, number 20 is Portugal, and then number 21 is Poland. And then it just goes on from there. But the statistics are always cool to look at. I have to move off the statistics right now and stop rabbit holing on them, because I will rabbit hole about those all night long. Because it's just so cool to see how many people are from where. But with that, I hope that does kind of address that question fairly well. I don't even know how in the world we got onto the analytics, but I hope y'all enjoyed hearing about the analytics. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and real quick, shout out to Brett Atencio RN, who put in a $51 donation to the fundraiser, and huge shout out for that generosity as well, and for bringing this up to $4,400 even. That satisfies my OCD so much that you brought it up to an even figure like that, and thank you very much. And also, moving on to our next one here, it goes to, let's see, LSA Sergeant Figment, who says apparently the Russian Third Army has conducted a mutiny and joined the RDK and FFRL in their takeover of Belgrade and Kursk. And did you hear any news about that?
I have not heard anything about that, and I promise you, if we had, that would have been the headline tonight. But sadly, I haven't heard enough news to be able to confirm that or not. But I thank you for sharing that with us, LSA Sergeant Figment, and I will research it more. And also, I will check the Discord after the stream. I saw you say that earlier on, and sorry about that. It's just that we've been so busy, it's hard for me to actually get around to the Discords these days and try and see what everyone's saying. But still, thank you for asking a great question. Thank you for being the LSA Sergeant Figment, and I will make sure to check out the Discord DMs after the stream. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And we've got a question now from Catherine F., who says, why are the owners of the refineries being helped out the window, and are they being blamed for the refineries' lack of air defense?
I don't think they're being blamed for the lack of air defense, because that would clearly fall to the Ministry of Defense to coordinate with the oil refineries and get air defense around them. And also, Matthew, have you heard about any of the refinery factory heads getting thrown out of windows? Because I don't think I have.
Yeah, it was the vice president of Lukoil. He just got thrown out of a window yesterday. The company said that actually, I have it right here on Twitter, by the way. We had actually gotten news about what he had actually died of. Of course, it was very suspicious indeed. I was wanting to say it was a gunshot wound to the head, but I would have to go back and look. And I'll have to do some looking because it's pretty far back. It's like 2 days back. But he was killed in some way, and they wouldn't say how he died at first. Lukoil kept that quiet, and then they reluctantly said later how he died. But certainly some funny business going on with that, and he's just a long line of Lukoil executives that have been knocked off in the past year or so. And also, Putin seems to make a habit out of knocking off these oligarchs. If they get a little too powerful or a little bit too mouthy, he just simply knocks them off without any thought.
Yeah, he really does. So sadly, I haven't been able to hear about them falling out of windows, but I don't think they're being blamed for the lack of air defense, because that is a Ministry of Defense side of things and something that those refineries can never do on their own. But with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is going to go to Avari Mandabratis, who says, what would be the consequences of a Ukrainian long-range drone striking by accident a Russian tactical nuclear warhead mounted on an Iskander missile in the open in an ammo dump? That's a good one.
That's a very specific question. There probably wouldn't really be any repercussions for that. And also, if it was a tactical nuclear warhead on an Iskander that had not been fired, chances are it hadn't even been armed, so it wouldn't detonate if it was hit. That's a bit of a misnomer that people believe that if you hit a nuclear weapon in storage, it will detonate. It will not, but it will send all the radioactive filler that's inside of that nuclear weapon flying throughout the area and create pretty much a radioactive dust cloud that surrounds the explosion. So that would be really the only side effect. Beyond that, however, I don't really think there would be a massive repercussion for that, because it would really be like blowing up normal Iskander at that point. It just had a nuclear warhead on it for some reason. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And also, I went back and looked. The Lukoil vice president was found hanging in his apartment. That was his method of execution. So, in my opinion, obviously we don't have any direct proof of it, but that sounds pretty much clearly like somebody got to him. He probably ran his mouth a little too much against Putin, and he finally got rid of him. but he was found hanging. He didn't die of natural causes. But at least that's better than the last guy that got killed by Putin from Lukoil. The last guy, he banged his head on the side of his yacht. He slipped. He fell into the water, and then somehow he got shot in the back of the head, all at his own doings. So, you know, and then he washed up on the shore, and then I think a whale got him or something after that. But some bad things happen to people, oligarchs in Russia. You don't want to be one of them. But anyways, moving on to our next question here, we have one from Uncle Sam, the Patriot. Hey. He says, can see how much aid France has given to Ukraine, and has France talked about providing the Leclerc tanks? And thank you.
And I sadly do not know the exact number that France has provided off the top of my head either, but there has never been a discussion about sending the Leclerc to Ukraine. That is one thing I know very well, because we've heard about Challengers, Leopards, and Twardies, which are from Poland. They're upgraded T-72 pretty much, and also the Abrams, but we've never heard of the French talking about sending the Leclercs. The French decided instead to send their light tank, the AMX-10, which is a really cool light tank. And let me go grab a picture of one. So this is the AMX-10 RC. There's a difference I forgot to explain in between the AMX-10 RC and the AMX-10P. This is what the P looks like. It's completely different than the AMX-10 RC. This is a tracked armored personnel carrier. This right here is actually a light tank, a wheeled light tank. This thing is what the French sent instead. They're very cool, they're very maneuverable, very speedy, and they also have a great deal of firepower to be in such a small, light package. The only problem is that the Ukrainians hate them, and I gotta say this is completely on the Ukrainians, and I don't mean to like dog on them for a second, but why the hell did they try and use these things like main battle tanks when they're clearly a lightly armored wheeled light tank is beyond me, but it pissed them off that they would get blown up pretty easily by the Russians with like an RPG or a Kornets or an ATGM, because it has literally no armor. It's just a very big gun on a very fast chassis, and that's it. I don't know why they got so pissed off about that, because that's really a no-brainer about how the AMX-10 operates. It's a light tank. It's meant to quickly get up somewhere, pop off a shot or two, and then immediately run away. Do not sit around for long. Another cool thing about the AMX-10 RC that no one really points out is that it actually has a pneumatic suspension, which you can see in use right here, where you can actually tilt the whole entire hull of the turret. Well, not the hull of the turret. You can tilt the entire hull where it's at a different degree or a different angle than the actual wheelbase is, which is a very cool feature of the AMX-10 RC. It's very similar to the Type 90 in Japan that can also do a similar thing.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat, pretty cool. But with that, I hope that does address that well, at least as far as what French armor has done for Ukraine, or what armor has been provided. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is going to go to Eric Wine Nelson. He says, when the drone hits, does it not look as if the panel that pops out on the right side looks as if it has a British military logo on it? And what did you see?
Sadly, I'd have to declare ignorance on that, because I don't know what video that question is being asked about, whether it's a BMP-3 or a T-72 or a BTR or a BMP. So sadly, I'd have to declare ignorance on that at the moment. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Digifix, who says, could a change in Russia's government bring peace?
Yes, a change in Russia's government could bring peace. I would have to say that 100%. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next one is going to go to Michael Johnson. And he says, how the heck does Little Transnistria have any sort of corridor for supplies to keep even in existence, and how do they get supplies?
They don't get any supplies. They actually have this massive ammo cache that was built by the Russians. That's hundreds of thousands of rounds from what we know, or millions of rounds even, that they just keep there at all times to keep them going. So they kind of, I guess you could say they kind of just pack snacks is the best way to explain that in military terms. So they don't really need anyone to give them food, because they got snacks in the car, they got the air conditioner on, and they're vibing. I guess that's the best way I can explain that. And so with that, I hope that does address that quite well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next question is going to go to Michael Johnson, that we already read off, actually. So let me take that one off the list. I didn't put the little red mark on it. But anyways, believe it or not, that's actually our last question in the spreadsheet. That was the last one. So Enforcer, we're fresh out.
What the hell? What are we
We
doing?
ran through, you know how many we ran through?
How many did we run through?
We ran through 30.
Dang, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a ton.
Well, I guess that's
What are we
that.
gonna do?
I don't know. We've never had this happen before. Like, we've never just had it to where we have no questions. Well, I guess we can appease everyone, Matthew, just this one time, just tonight. You know, because see some people asking for it. We'll do it. This will be our final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night? And it is Peter Summers, who said, "It is time. It is that time, Matthew. It is that time of the night where we have to celebrate a tradition on this channel. A tradition that has survived for a long time and will continue to survive. We have to show the marmot." Oh, hello there!
Laura,
Hey! It's Alan, the marmot.
Would you like a plum, governor?
Would you like a plum, governor? Or more so, would you like a hot dog? Hey! We love to see it. It's the marmot.
The fly said,
Can I have some extra relish and a hot dog, please?
You can have whatever you want, love. But beyond that, it's the marmot.
man, those pro-Russian hot dog sellers, I tell you what, man, they have a way of going by the wayside, you know what I mean?
They have a way of exposing themselves pretty easily. Pretty quickly, as a matter of fact. And also, I see one question asked in the chat. Fred Zirzo Sr. said, "Why no PayPal for the flags?" Because if you click on the link in the description below that says "Get your signed LSA flag here," it takes you to our website where you can pay for it there instead of going through PayPal, because that would be incredibly complicated to manage that and fill out the orders and everything that way. If you go through the website, we get your shipping address and everything instead of, you know, just you sending us $54 and then we got to figure out everything else. So it makes it very easy on our end. So I hope that answers that question well. I guess that kind of is one of the final questions of the night. But beyond that, I love to see the marmot. It's bricked up, it's caked up, and not only that, it's got the rock and the plum. Rock and plum. Matthew, oh my god, dude. I'm not going to come up with a million merch ideas tonight, but what if we came up with a brand of jelly or jam that was called Rock and Plum?
Man, I don't know about jam. Like, I can swing coffee and tea, but jam, that's going to be a tough one. That's something you actually have to have some really, like, deep know-how to get that done.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't think we can touch on that.
That might be above my pay grade, but coffee's not, and tea isn't.
But we can do coffee, and we might be able to do tea. Oh my, dude, I have an idea for the name for the tea, but we'll save that for after stream. But with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream, surprisingly enough, at 2 hours and 17 minutes in. A lot shorter than I wanted to be, because usually we kind of try and aim for the shortest streams to be 2.5 hours long. But regardless of that, regardless of how short this stream is, I hope that we were able to give the kind of quality that a lot of y'all were looking for tonight. And boy howdy, were a lot of y'all looking for it. 86,000 people have watched this stream as of right now. There's still 5.5 thousand people here. This is the lowest point on the entirety of the stream, because the peak tonight was 11,250 live viewers, and now we're down to 5.5 thousand. Beyond that, however, I get to thank every single one of y'all so much once again for watching tonight. It has been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to talk to so many of y'all about this news, because we would be doing this every single day, whether there was only 20 people watching or whether there was 11,250 people watching. But it makes us incredibly happy to know that so many people come here to watch this news, listen to what we have to say about the war's events, and not only that, come here for the amazing Lee Spring Army that dwells in our live chat every single night and has the same kind of kindness and just golden spirit that has shined through ever since the beginning of the war. It is wonderful to have y'all all here tonight. It is wonderful to be able to run this fundraiser with all of y'all and get it up to a whopping $4,421 as this fundraiser is rounding out right now. We are entirely honored to be able to say that this channel has done all of that tonight, and will continue to do even more for y'all in the future as we try and make even better videos, even better streams that continue to tell you all the news of what's going on. If you are new to this channel tonight, and a lot of y'all are, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It makes us really happy when y'all do. It doesn't really help us out in any real metric. It just makes us happy.
Oh, yeah, it does. Yeah, it does, man. Those subscribers help out a ton.
Man, well, not really. I mean, but they kind of do. They kind of do, but they kind of don't. It really like because YouTube actually doesn't push channels anymore based off of their subscriber count. They actually push them based off of their click-through rate. So click-through rate's actually a lot more important for us than subscribers, and that's why small channels can blow up is because it's more about click-through rates than subscribership these days. So it doesn't really help us out that much. But if you do subscribe and you hit the bell button, then it helps us out with letting us know that y'all be watching more of our videos and streams. But in the big picture, that is not that big of a help, but it is a great one, and we're always happy to have y'all subscribe, like, and comment, and continue to watch this stuff, because we're always going to be here 6 days a week on this stream at the same time every single night, covering the news of this war. At 10 p.m. Eastern Time is the start of the stream every single night, and then pretty much every single day, hopefully, we get to put out a short war video, but that kind of depends on if there's enough news for us to cover. Some days there isn't, and those are a little rare, but some days there may just not be a video because there's not enough news to cover at that point in the day, but there may be more news to cover later on in the day when the live stream comes around. But usually 7 days a week we put out a short war video, and 6 days a week we put out the live streams, and that's 6 days a week excluding Monday. That's the only day we do not run a live stream, but every other 6 days we do. And so with that, I thank you all so much once again for watching. And of course, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Leaf Spring Army. The Leaf Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks, and thank you all for another great fundraiser stream. Tonight, $4,421 raised for Ukrainian charity once again, and the LSA always makes it possible, and we appreciate it very, very much. Be sure to join us tomorrow for the Short War Summary, and also on Tuesday night once again for that stream. And we'll see you all then. Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, and good night.
Yes. The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Пануєм, і ми, браття, у своїй